Chapter 1939. She was also from a large clan in Jiangnan. Shinbijuan had once coincidentally caught a glimpse of Li Qingluo from afar, but she hadn't seen her at the time. Although she did not know who the White Lotus Mother was, she could still recognize her as the madam from the Wang family of Gusu. She had heard that soon after she married into the Wang family, the old master had passed away a long time ago due to his sickly body. Afterwards, she lived in seclusion in Montois Villa all year round. Because she was far too beautiful, there had been plenty of discussions and speculations about her in the circle of madams and young ladies behind her back. However, she had always been an upright person, so she had never heard of any true scandals about her. But looking at it now, it seemed like she had something going on with Song Lang. Thinking of that, Shen Bijuan felt strange. Who is the old saber honcho of the Mansion of Spirits? Song Qingshu asked directly. Li Qingluo shook her head. No one knows who the old saber honcho is. Song Qingshu frowned. How is that possible? You've never seen him before he gave you this mission? Li Qingluo answered. He never shows himself. He talks to us from behind a wall or a screen every time. We only know he's a man. So mysterious? Song Qingshu thought of the old saber honcho in Lu Xiaofeng, who was the wooden Taoist of Wudong sect, but the one in this world clearly wasn't. Could it be Jia Sherdao? Why did you guys join this Mansion of Spirits? Song Qingshu asked with some dissatisfaction. Li Qingluo slowly answered, because the Mansion of Spirits only has one purpose, and that is to slay dragons. Slay dragons? Song Qingshu was stunned. To kill Zhao Go? Li Qingluo nodded. Yes. Back then, my aunts and uncles were very kind to me. They were killed unjustly. Other than Qin Hui and Ma Qiwan, Zhao Go was the real mastermind behind the scenes. How could I let him continue to be the emperor? So someone contacted me, and we hit it off. Song Qingshu recalled the scene of Xiao Long Nu entering the Lin, an imperial palace alone to assassinate Zhao Go, and he could not help but feel a headache. Since it was to kill Zhao Go, why did you come to deal with the Wu-Tang clan? Li Qingluo replied weakly. It's mainly because old Saber Honcho said that this is a plot to assassinate Zhao Go. You believe me just like that? Song Qingshu was so angry that he laughed. He couldn't help but pinch her hard. Only Li Qingluo's face reddened. She bit her lip and snorted. Why wouldn't I believe it? That dog emperor's body has been damaged by himself. These years he has been praying to God and Buddha all day long. And Zhang is a famous longevity star. So when old Saber Honcho invited Zhang to Jiangnan as a guest, I reckon he was planning to use this as a pretext to lure Zhao Go into a trap. I just didn't expect that they were actually planning to exterminate the entire Wudong sect. If I knew about this from the beginning, I definitely wouldn't have gotten involved. Song Qingshu snorted coldly and said, Who knows if you guys would be so eager for revenge that you're blinded by greed. Li Qingluo's face turned cold. When have I ever explained my actions to anyone? Only you are the exception. If you don't believe me, I can't do anything about it. Let me down. Xiao Long Nu hurriedly persuaded. Biaojia, don't be agitated, lest you aggravate your injuries again. Song Dage, I have always been with Biaojia. I can testify for her. All right, for the time being what you said is true. Song Qingshu pondered for a moment. Then why would old Saber Honcho lie to you? Don't tell me he knows about our relationship. Maybe I asked old Saber Honcho whether or not he would harm Zhang and the others, and aroused his vigilance, so he purposely weaved a lie. Li Qingluo replied. Suddenly she realized something. Her face instantly blushed. She hastily spat. Pei, what relationship do I have with you? It's just that for the sake of Biaomei, we can barely be considered friends. Only now did Song Qingshu realize that there were other people next to them. He embarrassedly said, Who said we have no relationship? I'm also your daughter's savior. Furthermore, I have also saved your mother and father. Seeing the two of them trying to cover up, Shun Bijuan secretly sighed, but she still pretended that she did not see anything. Xiao Long Nu was also involved in the situation, so she did not think too much about it. Li Qingluo coughed twice and continued, I know about the matter of you saving them. Not long ago, I went to Beating Drum Mountain and met them Otherwise, where did I get my grieving, paralyzing wind from? Song Qing-shu secretly nodded his head. It seems that old Saber Honcho needs you to provide him with a grieving, paralyzing wind. That's why he pulled you into the situation. Li Qingluo immediately became slightly displeased. Are you saying my martial arts are not good enough? By now, they had already returned to their residence. He placed her on the bed. I'm just stating the facts. I can see that Taoist Huang Mu, Silly T, and the others' martial arts are not weak. Old Saber Honcho might not care about your martial arts. The reason why he tricked you into joining them must be because the grieving, paralyzing wind you possess is something they need for their plan this time. If you say so, then so be it. Li Qingluo snorted. She was the mighty white lotus mother. In the Jianghu, she was also someone who struck fear in their hearts. In the end, her martial arts were looked down upon. She obviously felt rather uncomfortable. All right, from what you said earlier, it seems that the Mansion of Spirits is specially looking for powerful people like you who have a deep grudge against Xiao Go. I wonder who else is in the Mansion of Spirits? Song Qing-shu asked. Li Qingluo shook her head. The people in the Mansion of Spirits have always been in one-way contact. They do not know about other people in parallel. This time, Taoist Huang Mu and Silly T only found out because they participated in the same mission. Song Qing-shu frowned. Then there are no clues at all. It's not that there aren't any. Li Qingluo gestured to Xiao Long Nu to find a pillow for her back. She sat up against the headboard and answered, I've investigated privately. The people in the Mansion of Spirits all hide their identities. They all use nicknames. For example, Taoist Huang Mu's nickname is Wandering Soul. Silly T's nickname is Soul Seducer. Song Qing-shu thought that these nicknames were quite fitting. Taoist Huang Mu's martial arts meant that he could appear and disappear unpredictably. In addition, he escaped from the poisonous dragon cave. He really was like a wandering soul. As for Silly T, he was famous for his magical sword. Once his sword was drawn, it really was soul-seducing. It was a pity that he encountered Zhang Sanfeng, a demi-immortal. Previously, Ruan Xingzhu was almost assassinated by Wandering Soul. Now, that Wandering Soul died in Wudang. It could be considered as solving a problem for her. Then what's your nickname? Song Qing-shu asked curiously. The usually cold and arrogant Li Qingluo suddenly became bashful. This time, even the usually cold Xiao Long Nu could not help but laugh. Cousin's nickname is Widow Flower. Widow Flower? Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. Finally, he also laughed. That's quite fitting. Widow naturally lived up to her name. As for Flower, with his relationship with Li Qingluo, it was obvious that she could not be a chaste woman. He did not know why she gave herself this nickname. What are you laughing at? Li Qingluo was instantly annoyed. She really could not keep her face. Song Qing-shu smiled and changed the topic. Longer, what's your nickname? Xiao Long Nu shook her head. I did not join the Mansion of Spirits. Chapter 1953. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but roll his eyes. Can't you have something healthy in your head? Am I that kind of person? Our age gap is so big. Even if your mother is willing, I won't. Li Qingluo realized that she was wrong. But when she heard his words, she couldn't help but be angry. What nonsense are you talking about? My mother is very powerful. She is young and looks like my sister. How dare you say she is ugly? Song Qing-shu was speechless. When did I say she is ugly? I just said that I have moral integrity and won't do such a shameful thing. You have moral integrity? Li Qingluo sneered. Even Xiao Long Nu, who had always been aloof from worldly affairs, curled her lips. Song Qing-shu was finally annoyed. Don't talk nonsense. Are you going to do it or not? Yes, of course. Li Qingluo smiled slightly. There is a ready-made donkey. Why don't I take it? After all, she was seriously injured. It was impossible for her to continue walking. She couldn't let the delicate Xiao Long Nu carry her. Feeling the weight on his body, Song Qing-shu smiled and said, You should lose some weight. You are still so heavy when you're injured. He held her thighs with both hands and felt the soft fullness on his back. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. They were all grown where they should be. If you don't speak, no one will think you are mute. Li Qingluo pinched him hard secretly. You win. Song Qingshu gasped. He had to carry her on his back. Have you ever bullied Ji Yin? Li Qingluo was carried by him. She leaned her head against his neck and whispered in his ear. Of course not. Song Qingshu was speechless. Do you think I am Yun Zhanghe or Tian Wang? Li Qingluo snorted. You are even more abominable than those people. They only steal their bodies, but you steal their hearts. Song Qingshu replied, I didn't see your heart stolen by me either. Li Qingluo blushed and changed the topic. This time I went to Beating Drum Mountain to see Yu Yin. Why does she always talk about you? You know, she used to talk about her cousin the most. Song Qingshu was proud. This is called personal charm. Compared with Murong Fu, ordinary people know that I am much better. Li Qingluo's expression turned cold. I'm not joking with you. I know your licentious personality the best. You're not allowed to provoke Yu Yin. Okay. I know my limits. Song Qingshu also sighed inwardly. You can't have your cake and eat it too, no matter which world you are in. It's good that you know your limits. Otherwise, I'll make you practice the Bishius swordplay. As Li Qingluo spoke, her eyes swept over his lower abdomen. The two of them used to chat about the martial arts world when they were hanging out, so naturally they knew the secret of the Bishius swordplay. Li Qingluo glanced at his lower abdomen. They used to talk about Wulin when they were together, so they knew the secret of Bishius swordsmanship. Li Qingluo snorted. The man who abandoned his wife and daughter is not my father. Only Yu Yin is kind-hearted. She accompanied him and said she wanted to cure him. Song Qingshu smiled and didn't say anything. It was difficult for an upright official to solve a family dispute. Oh, where's your martial aunt? You mean Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao? Li Qingluo answered. My mother deliberately showed her affection in front of her every day. Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao was angry, but couldn't do anything about it. After a while, she couldn't stand it anymore and left without saying goodbye. I don't know where she went. Thinking of the little girl who suddenly became beautiful, Song Qingshu felt very complicated. Oi. Don't tell me you have ill intentions towards martial aunt. You're a beast. Noticing his expression, Li Qingluo was furious. Song Qingshu was extremely gloomy. What nonsense are you saying? You're the mighty white lotus mother. Can't you have some normal things in your head? Li Qingluo's face heated up. She thought to herself, after spending so much time with this bastard, she really did seem to have become a little improper. The two girls on the side saw them argue again. Xiaolong could not help but ask, What are you arguing about? Shen Bijuan also tried to persuade him. Brother Song, Sister Li is still heavily injured after all. You should go easy on her. Song Qingshu wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Just now, the two of them had purposely lowered their voices, and Li Qingluo was practically whispering into his ear. They did not know what the two of them were talking about, and only heard their own angry voices at the end. It's nothing. Song Qingshu knew it would be a mess if he tried to explain, so he just ran down the mountain faster. Xiaolongnu's lightness kung fu was superb. She could climb over mountains as if they were flat ground. Shen Bijuan originally didn't know martial arts, but Song Qingshu had taught her the Shinzu scripture and guided the flow of Jinqi in her body at night. Now she had some Jinqi, and her legs were more agile than normal people. With Xiaolongnu's help, she was able to keep up. The group descended the mountain. The horses that Yu Cha and the others had brought were left at the foot of the mountain. They took them for themselves. It would be a waste if they did not take them. Li Qingluo was heavily injured, so she had to share a horse with someone else. However, she refused to ride with Song Qingshu. In the end, Xiaolongnu shared a horse with her. As for Shen Bijuan, she had already learned how to ride a horse under Song Qingshu's guidance. When the sky was almost dark, they finally reached the riverside. They were lucky and met a merchant ship. Song Qingshu paid a lot of gold and easily got 3 good rooms. Li Qingluo needed someone to take care of her, and Xiaolongnu was used to sleeping on ropes, so she did not worry about the bed being crowded. As for Shen Bijuan, Song Qingshu had wanted to share a room with her, but Shen Bijuan did not agree. She could not bring herself to do that in front of the other two girls. Song Qing-shu could only sigh. 3 monks really didn't have water to eat. However, he couldn't bear to go against Shen Bijuan's wishes, so he could only choose 3 rooms. After dinner, Song Qing-shu found a chance to go to Li Qingluo and Shen Bijuan's room. "Oh yes, where's Miss Shui who brought you to find Lord Yu's orphan? After we found our brothers, Miss Shui came back to Lin with us. But she could not find you for a long time, so she went back to her hometown to continue mourning for her father." Xiao Long Nu was surprised. "Why did you only ask now? I thought you had asked before." Li Qingluo saw through the reason. "Puffed. It's because you are worried that the crown princess will be jealous." Song Qing-shu's face heated up. Indeed, he had such thoughts. After all, he and Shen Bijuan had just become inseparable, and now he had introduced her to 2 beautiful confidants at Mount Wudong. He was worried that she would not be able to take it if he brought a 3rd rival in such a short time. All right, Long, your ancient tomb sect Qinggong is famous in the martial world. Go to Bijuan and teach her how to practice Qinggong for me. I'll stay here and heal your cousin," Song Qing-shu said. "Okay." Xiao Long Nu nodded and quickly left. Although the martial arts of the various sects weren't taught to outsiders, she owed Song Qing-shu a great favor. Moreover, she still needed to help her cousin heal. So, teaching Shen Bijuan some lightness arts wasn't a big deal. Seeing Song Qing-shu close the door, Li Qingluo blushed. "Why did you close the door?" Chapter 1954. Li Qingluo reddened. "They're still next door." Song Qing-shu was taken aback. "What does me healing you have to do with them being next door?" Suddenly, he returned to his senses. "So that's what you're thinking about. Since you're so kind, I can only oblige." Li Qingluo was embarrassed. "What nonsense are you talking about? Isn't your martial arts best for healing people?" She knew Song Qing-shu very well, so she obviously knew that his true chi of joy was best for healing internal injuries. However, apart from the people closest to him, he really could not use this martial art. Seeing how the beautiful woman who had always been bright and charming had become slightly paler and weaker after being heavily injured, Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. "Yeah, I'll heal you right now." Li Qingluo's eyes shone as she bit her lip gently. "Hurry up. Don't let them find out when they come back." This was exactly what Song Qing-shu liked about Li Qingluo. So what if there were other people around, but when it was just the 2 of them, she would never be bashful or pretentious. She would change from her usual coldness and become extremely proactive and passionate. The charm of a mature woman was fully unleashed on her. Song Qing-shu was the most relaxed when he was with her. As compared to other women, Li Qingluo never needed him to consider the issue of responsibility. All he needed to do was unleash and collide in the most primitive way between a man and a woman. Compared to those who were still young and had yet to fully mature, Song Qing-shu had to be careful every time, afraid of hurting them. However, this was not a problem when he was with Li Qingluo. He could completely unleash his wildest side, and she could endure it with her endless passion and mature gentleness. When he was with other women, he had to consider the unavoidable problem of pregnancy, which was why he would often need to refine his vitality into qi. However, he did not have to when he was with Li Qingluo. He could completely unleash his passion as much as he wanted in her body. She was the mighty white lotus mother. She had plenty of experience in the Jianghu, and she was a mature woman who had experienced it all. She had plenty of contraceptive methods. With all these factors added together, every time he was with Li Qingluo, he would be able to spend a period of perfect happiness. It was the same for Li Qingluo. Song Qing-shu's handsomeness, youth, strength, kung fu. No matter what kind of kung fu it was, it made her extremely infatuated with it. Those who were familiar with her all knew that she had always been a strong and ruthless person. Only in front of stronger men like Song Qing-shu could she understand what was called the joy of being a woman. She was an extremely mature woman. Since she parted with Song Qing-shu last time, it had been a long time. Now that they met again, it was really like dry wood meeting a raging fire or cold water dripping into oil. Especially when she thought that her cousin and her cousin were just next door, she had no choice but to suppress her voice. But this was the way of the world. The more she suppressed it, the stronger the feeling would be, causing her to be even more sensitive and aroused than before. When Xiaolong knew and the others returned to the room, they saw that Li Qingluo's face was flushed and her forehead was covered in sweat. They were worried that her internal injuries had relapsed. Li Qingluo hurriedly replied that it was because the other party used his internal energy to help her circulate, so it was a bit hot. Xiaolong nodded in confusion and didn't think too much about it. When Song Qingshu and Shun Bijuan returned to the room, he asked her about the progress of her qigong. Shun Bijuan roughly explained the progress to him. Seeing that he was somewhat absent-minded, she couldn't help but laugh. "Brother Song, you should quickly go back and rest. Look at how tired you are." Song Qingshu was puzzled. "How am I tired?" Shun Bijuan sighed. "Miss Long is pure and flawless. Naturally, you wouldn't be able to smell the smell in the room just now. Do you think I'm not familiar with it?" During this time, she and Song Qingshu had been like glue. She couldn't be more familiar with this kind of ambiguous atmosphere. Song Qingshu blushed. "I hope Bijuan can keep this matter a secret. After all, it will damage her reputation and the Wang family's reputation." Shun Bijuan faintly sighed. "Don't worry, I'm not someone who doesn't know what's important. I won't even tell Miss Long." Song Qingshu felt guilty. "Bijuan, are you regretting following a womanizer like me?" Shun Bijuan shook her head. "In this world, the more capable a man is, the more women he will have. Although I'm a bit disappointed, this is what I expected from the beginning. When I was at my most desperate, it was Brother Song who appeared and saved me from the abyss. At that time, your entire body seemed to be emitting a rainbow light. I knew that I would never fall in love with another man in this life." Song Qingshu was filled with emotion when he heard this. He pulled her into his arms. "I don't know how many lifetimes of good fortune I've accumulated to have Bijuan like this." Shun Bijuan pursed her lips and smiled. "Although I don't mind Brother Song being a womanizer, you're covered in the scent of other women. Is it really okay to hug me like this?" Song Qingshu felt very awkward. "Then I'll go take a shower first. I'll come back to you later." Shun Bijuan put a finger on his mouth. "Brother Song, after you shower, you should rest well. You've been running around everywhere today and used up a lot of your energy. You were tired just now." Song Qingshu patted his chest and said, "I'm in good health. It's not like you don't know." Shun Bijuan blushed. "No matter how good your body is, it's still made of flesh. Besides, I've been reading history books since I was a child. How could I imitate Daji and ruin her lover's body for her own pleasure? Brother Song, rest well. We still have a lot of time in the future." Song Qingshu was very happy. "All right, since Bijuan has said that, how could I accuse you of being unfaithful? We still have a lot of time in the future." Shun Bijuan was puzzled at first when she heard him mumble that word. Then she realized what he meant and couldn't help but feel embarrassed. She didn't mean it that way at all. The group traveled down the river. Along the way, Song Qingshu would occasionally fool around in Li Qingluo's room. If he missed Li Qingluo, he would use the excuse of teaching her lightness kung fu to send Xiaolong away. They really lived like gods on the way. Li Qingluo also gradually recovered with his help. Time always flew when one was happy. The group quickly arrived at Linen. Li Qingluo finally couldn't help but ask him how he planned to investigate the Mansion of Spirits. Song Qingshu replied that Taoist Huang Mu's lightness kung fu is strange, and he hasn't been in contact with anyone for many years. If I pretend to be him, it won't be easy to be suspected. Li Qingluo nodded. With that strange kung fu of Taoist Huang Mu, normal people really can't pretend to be him. It's really a good idea for you to pretend to be him. It just so happens that we have to report to Old Saber Honcho about the completion of the mission. You can come with me." "Okay." Song Qingshu was getting more and more curious about this Old Saber Honcho's identity. Li Qingluo suddenly sighed. "I'm afraid I won't be able to avenge little aunt and little uncle's death in this lifetime." She was very clear about Song Qingshu's kung fu. If he really went all out, no matter how mysterious Old Saber Honcho was, it would be difficult for him to escape. Chapter 1955. Xiao Long Nu, who had been listening quietly to the side, suddenly said, "Thank you." Despite Song Qingshu's explanation, anyone with a discerning eye could see that it was definitely because of them. Song Qingshu nodded slightly and then began to change his clothes. As for the mask of Taoist Huang Mu, he had already prepared it on Mount Wudong. All that was left was to prepare clothes and so on. After the boat arrived in Lin, and Li Qingluo first went to an agreed place to leave a signal, and then after confirming that no one was following her, she met up with Song Qingshu and went to a nearby clothing store to buy suitable clothes with him. As for Shun Bijuan, she stayed in an inn with Xiao Longnu for the time being. After Song Qingshu finished changing his clothes, the two returned to the place where the signal was left. Li Qingluo looked carefully for a while and said, "Old Saber Honcho wants to see us." Song Qingshu nodded and asked her about the internal password communication in Mansion of Spirits along the way. Very soon, they arrived at the agreed place. There was a carriage at the agreed place. Li Qingluo hinted at Song Qingshu and came to the carriage. The coachman handed them 2 pieces of black cloth. Song Qingshu imitated Li Qingluo and tied the black cloth over his eyes and got on the carriage. Very soon, they felt the carriage start to move. Song Qingshu said using secret voice sending, "Since it's to keep it a secret, why not prepare a pot of knockout drug? Let people drink it and fall asleep. When they wake up, they won't know where they are. What can a small piece of black cloth do? It can be taken off at any time." Li Qingluo replied, "Those low-level people do that. People like us in the inner circle, which one of us isn't an overlord? We are only cooperating with Old Saber Honcho, not his subordinates. How can they use this kind of method to deal with us? Not to mention," seeing that she wanted to say something but stopped, Song Qingshu asked curiously, "Not to mention what?" Li Qingluo replied, "Not to mention that I am a woman after all. How would I dare to drink something like that? Who knows what will happen when the time comes?" Song Qingshu smiled knowingly. "Not only are you a woman, but you're also a beautiful woman. Once you faint, no one will care whether you're the white lotus mother who strikes fear into the hearts of the people of the Jianghu." Li Qingluo blushed and said, "Nothing good comes out of dog's mouth. Let's think about how to deal with Old Saber Honcho later." While they were chatting, the carriage had gradually slowed down. Feeling the vibration of the carriage, Song Qingshu said, "We should be entering a house. You are familiar with Lin. Do you know where we are?" Although his eyes were covered with a black cloth, he could roughly remember the way by deliberately feeling the direction of each turn. Unfortunately, Linen was so big that he had only been in Linen for a short time, so he was really not familiar with the streets and alleys of Linen. Li Qingluo shook her head and said, "I can only tell that it is roughly in the north of the city, but not the specific location. In fact, even if I know it, it is useless. This place must be a temporary stronghold that will be abandoned after one use. No one has ever seen the headquarters of the Mansion of Spirits." Song Qingshu nodded to show that he understood, but he felt strange at the same time. The Lin and Imperial Palace was in the area of Phoenix Mountain in the south of the city, and most of the officials and nobles lived in the south of the city, while the north of the city was almost inhabited by civilians. That was how the upper and lower city of Hangzhou came into being. The south was the upper city, and the north was the lower city. He had guessed that the mastermind was Jia Sherdao, and he thought that the stronghold would be in the south of the city. But on second thought, it was normal for the other party to deliberately meet in a place far away from the headquarters in order to avoid any relationship. "Here we are. Please get off." The coachman's voice came from outside. Song Qingshu and Li Qingluo took off the black cloth in front of their eyes and walked out of the carriage. They found that the whole carriage was in a secret room, and they could not see the outside at all. Naturally, they could not tell where they were. "Why are only you two back? Where is Soul Reaping?" At this time, a mysterious voice suddenly came from behind a wall. This voice was deliberately changed, so it should not be his original voice. Song Qingshu had a headache. He had originally planned to see if he should restrain Old Saber Honcho according to the situation, but the other party did not even want to fight him. There was a wall between them, And who knew what traps there were on the other side? If he broke through the wall directly, what if the other party had another trap and escaped? Wouldn't that alert the enemy? Li Qingluo did not expect the other party to be so cautious this time. After a moment of hesitation, she replied, "Soul reaping died in the hands of Zhang Sanfeng." Oh, Old Saber Hancho's tone was not surprised at all. Zhang Sanfeng is recognized as the world's #1, so it is not a shame to die in his hands. By the way, has the Wu-Tang clan been controlled this time? It has been controlled. Li Qingluo repeated the lines she had rehearsed before to the other party. I did not expect Heavenly Oasis to also die, but this is not surprising. Wu-Tang clan is not some small sect. Even if they were well prepared, their losses would certainly be great. Old Saber Hancho pondered for a moment. Zhang Sanfeng is dead. What about the heroes of Wu-Tang? Li Qingluo replied, Yu Dian and Zhang Songshi are dead, and the rest of the heroes of Wu-Tang are seriously injured. They are already under our control. Old Saber Hancho grunted. That's good too. Pay special attention to that Song Qingshu Yuanqiao. His martial arts is fine, but the key is that he has a troublesome son. Don't touch him for the time being, lest it causes Song Qingshu to go crazy. That would not end well. Li Qingluo could not help but glance at Song Qingshu. After exchanging glances with each other, she secretly admired him. She did not expect that this brat's reputation would be so great that even Old Saber Hancho would be afraid of him. May I ask, Old Saber Hancho, why is this mission different from what you told me at the beginning? Li Qingluo was worried that Old Saber Hancho would continue to interrogate her and reveal some flaws, so she simply asked a question of her own. Old Saber Hancho replied, I just did not want to distract you. At the beginning, my plan was to control them as much as I could, but just in case, I arranged for Wandering Souls and Heavenly Oasis as my hidden pawns. As it turns out, it is fortunate that I arranged these two hidden pawns, or else your mission this time would have failed on the verge of success. Li Qingluo laughed coldly. It seems that I have been kept in the dark from the beginning. The reason why you need me is most likely because I have a way to obtain the Sorrowful Wind Softener. Old Saber Hancho was silent for a long time before replying. That's right. Zhang Sanfeng's martial arts are divine. If not for the Sorrowful Wind Softener, no matter how meticulous our plan was, we would not have been able to take down Wu-Tang clan. But Widow Hua, why should you mind it? After all, this is beneficial to your final revenge. Zhang Sanfeng is respected by the people of the world. He is publicly acknowledged as an Earth Immortal. Once the news of his death is exposed, it will definitely cause a huge uproar. I don't understand why we need to deal with Zhang Sanfeng first in order to kill Zhao Go. Li Qingluo began to probe for information. Old Saber Hancho replied, I didn't tell you before because I didn't want the news to leak out. Now that the time is ripe, I can reveal a thing or two to you. He paused for a moment before continuing. The current emperor's health has always been poor. All these years, he has been seeking to become an immortal and seek the Tao, trying to prolong his life. Unfortunately, Zhang Sanfeng always finds an excuse to decline. If we can control Wu-Tang clan and find someone to pretend to be Zhang Sanfeng, we can easily get close to Zhao Go. At that time, the guards around him will definitely be the weakest. Hearing his words, Li Qingluo and Song Qingshu's hearts were in turmoil. No wonder they wanted to deal with Zhang Sanfeng, who is thousands of miles away. So this was their plan. Chapter 1956. At this time, Li Qingluo also raised her doubts, but Zhang Sanfeng is probably not that easy to impersonate. Not to mention his unfathomable martial arts, just in terms of appearance. How can he hide from Zhao Go and the people around him? Old Saber Hancho answered, Of course we have to choose someone who's good at disguise. The world is so big, and the Ruan family is the best at disguise. Unfortunately, the Ruan family is Han. Ahem, anyway, we can't use them. There was another excellent candidate, but I don't know where he went recently. Like a stone sinking into the sea, we can't find any news of him. Song Qingshu thought to himself. From his tone, it seemed that the Ruan family was Han Xingzhou's people, which further proved that he was Jia Sherdao. Also, who was the excellent candidate he mentioned? Could it be Azu? Now that Azu was in the Liao Palace, it was no wonder he couldn't find her. Then what should we do? Li Qingluo frowned. Old Saber Honcho answered, You don't have to worry about that. I'll think of a way to solve it. Widow Hua, I still have something to ask Wandering Soul. Go back first. I'll send someone to inform you if there's anything else. Li Qingluo looked worriedly at Song Qingshu. Noticing that he gave her a reassuring look, she nodded and left the room. Someone outside naturally took her back to the carriage and left. Song Qingshu was secretly on guard. Did the other party notice something when he asked him to stay alone? But he was bold and skilled, so he wasn't afraid. If something really went wrong, he'd just break through the wall and capture the other party. Did Widow Hua hide anything just now? After a while, old Saber Honcho's voice came from behind the wall again. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that compared to Li Qingluo, this wandering soul was old Saber Honcho's confidant. She didn't hide anything. It's just that after the Wu-Tang incident, she's been a little depressed. She also repeatedly confirmed that the people from Wu-Tang Mountain wouldn't be hurt this time. Old Saber Honcho sneered. Women are like this, afraid of wolves in front and tigers behind. How can they accomplish anything great? Song Qingshu remained silent. Wandering souls had always been gloomy, so it was always right to speak less. Old Saber Honcho suddenly said, But in the Jianghu, this woman has always been known for her vicious and merciless methods. Why would she have such misgivings toward Wudong people? Oh, rumor has it that Song Qingshu is a famous playboy in Jianghu. He is good at seducing women from thousands of miles away. Could it be that Widow Hua has also been seduced by him? Song Qingshu was sweating like a waterfall. Was his reputation that bad? I don't think that's possible. It's too unbelievable. From behind the wall came old Saber Honcho's muttering voice. Presumably it is because Song Qingshu saved that you families miss. The other party's voice was very low. If not for Song Qingshu's divine power, he might not have heard it through the wall. Hearing that he had dispelled his doubts, Song Qingshu breathed a sigh of relief. But soon he heard the other party's question. Right? How is the matter I told you to do? Song Qingshu's heart was in his throat. He carefully answered, I've already killed that Ruan family woman. He secretly rejoiced that he had personally experienced this matter. Otherwise, how would he know what that Taoist Huang Mu had gone to do? Your martial arts are most suitable for assassination. No matter how tight the guard around Madame Ruan are, it would be difficult to stop you without a targeted arrangement. I'm not surprised that you completed the task unexpectedly. I'm asking about another matter. How is your investigation going? Old Saber Honcho's voice came again. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. At that time, in the Purple Cloud Palace, the situation was critical. He could only use a heavy hand. Taoist Huang Mu's heart was pierced by thousands of swords, and he died on the spot. Song Qingshu had no time to interrogate him. The people in the Mansion of Spirits were independent. Li Qingluo couldn't possibly know what Taoist Huang Mu's task was. Just when he didn't know how to respond, he heard old Saber Honcho say, It seems that the investigation didn't go well. Speaking of which, you can't be blamed. That Jia guy used all his intelligence to investigate for so long, but he didn't find anything. It would be strange if you found it so easily. Song Qingshu's heart moved. Listening to what he said, it seemed that he wasn't Jia Sherdao. Then all the previous speculations about him would have to be overturned. But you still have to do what you should. You still have to do your best to investigate. After all, this time Jia guy gave us a lot of help. If it weren't for his group of blind swordsmen, it would be really difficult to control the Wu-Tang sect. Old Saber Honcho laughed. Okay, Song Qingshu was a man of few words, but he was calculating quickly in his mind. It seemed that those blind swordsmen were indeed Jia Sherdao's men. They should have found this group of masters who had been blinded by Ling Hu Chao through Zhuo Linchen's connections, which was in line with his previous speculation. Then, the thing that Jia Sherdao used all his intelligence to investigate was obvious. Obviously, it was his son Jia Baoyu. Back then, Jia Baoyu was assassinated and died silently on the Isle of Heroes. Then, his body was turned into powder. Qin Haodong pretended to be Jia Baoyu, and went back to Linen. But not long after, he disappeared outside Linen. After that, he couldn't split himself, and it was impossible for him to pretend to be Jia Baoyu again. So, naturally, they lost track of Jia Baoyu. There was no Jia Baoyu in this world. No matter how powerful they were, they couldn't find a person who didn't exist at all. Okay, you go. Someone will contact you later. Old Saber Honcho's voice came from behind again. It seemed that he was about to leave. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. Just as he was hesitating whether he should go forward to restrain him, he suddenly heard the sound of a mechanism coming from behind the wall. Obviously, there was another mechanism behind the wall. At this point, Song Qingshu could only give up. After all, he didn't know what was going on behind the wall. Breaking through the wall probably wouldn't be able to catch Old Saber Honcho. Instead, it would alert the enemy. When he came out of the house, another coachman handed him a black cloth. Song Qingshu quietly got on the carriage. The carriage finally stopped after half an hour. The coachman outside was nowhere to be found. Song Qingshu tore off the black cloth. After confirming that there was no one watching nearby, he ran back according to his memory. With his lightness skill, he quickly found the previous house. It was already empty. After looking around, he finally found the secret room behind the wall. There was another mechanism in the secret room. It was connected to a secret passage. Finally, he found that the exit of the secret passage was in the courtyard of a family dozens of feet away. As for that Old Saber Honcho, there was no trace of him. It's like a secret agent. Song Qingshu had a headache. Wanting to find out the secret of the Mansion of Spirits would be much more difficult than he had imagined. Returning to the inn where they had agreed to meet, Li Qingluo and the others were already waiting for him. Seeing him return, they secretly heaved a sigh of relief. I thought you had fought with Old Saber Honcho. Song Qingshu shook his head. He roughly told them what happened after she left. Chapter 1957. Li Qingluo was the leader of both the Free and Unfettered sect and the White Lotus School. She could be considered a top-notch expert in the entire Jianghu, yet Old Saber Honcho did not intend to use her. This proved that either he did not lack people like her, or, with Li Qingluo's martial arts, she was not qualified to participate in the final event. Either way, it proved how terrifying the hidden forces of the Mansion of Spirits were. However, this was not what troubled Song Qingshu, but where to go next. Xiao Long knew naturally had to return to the Yu residence. Yu Fei had been rehabilitated, his orphan had been found, and the imperial court had returned the Yu residence to the Yu clan. Although Xiao Long knew liked to be alone, it was still her home now. Li Qingluo accompanied her. After all, she and the Yu clan were relatives. This time, the Yu clan had put in a lot of effort to find her. Perhaps because they were dissatisfied with Song Qingshu, the two girls left without any hesitation, not giving him the slightest chance to stop them. Song Qingshu, where are we going next? Shin Bijuan asked. This question truly stumped Song Qingshu. If he were alone, this question would be very simple. He would simply return to the Prince of Qi's residence. After being separated from Ren Yingying for so long, he still missed her. However, there was also Shin Bijuan. After being separated for so long, they finally met again. In the end, he brought a woman with him. No matter how he looked at it, he seemed like a scumbag. Why am I so hesitant now? Song Qingshu immediately comforted himself. He was not a scumbag. He just did not want to hurt the two girls, so he hesitated. Let's go. Let's return to the Qi residence. Song Qingshu finally made up his mind. He could not be like you the Great and not enter. Will elder sister Ren be unhappy to see me? Shin Bijuan bit her lips, her eyes filled with worry. Song Qingshu was originally having a headache about how to tell her about Ren Yingying. He did not expect her to bring it up. How did you know that Yingying is in the Qi residence? Shin Bijuan pursed her lips into a smile. The marriage between the Golden Snake King and the Saintess of the Sun Moon God sect is a wonderful story. Last time, when you saved Miss Ren all over the city, it caused a stir in the boudoir circles of Jiangnan. Although she was smiling, there was a hint of bitterness in her eyes. After all, she was once a proud woman, an unattainable goddess in the hearts of all men. She never thought that one day she would encounter such a thing. Song Qing-shu smiled sheepishly. Don't worry, Bijuan. Ying is a very good person. She won't make things difficult for you. You two will become good friends soon. Ren Ying's most famous characteristic was her grace and magnanimity. In the original work, even when Ling Hu Chong treated Yu Lingshan badly, she still helped to take care of him without any complaints. In this aspect, there really weren't many women who could compare to her. Of course, Ren Ying was not a saint. In the bottom of her heart, she would definitely be jealous. However, the more she was like this, the more people would feel pity for her. The two of them walked towards the Prince of Qi's residence. Originally, Song Qing-shu wanted to take her out to relax. Who knew that Shun Bijuan would constantly ask about some of Ren Ying's daily hobbies, causing Song Qing-shu's heart to ache. Bijuan, you really don't need to be so careful. You also don't need to deliberately curry favor with anyone. You just need to be yourself. You should know that although I'm a playboy, my standards are very high. On the whole, the ladies by my side are extremely kind-hearted. They don't fight for a man's favor in the palace and use all sorts of unscrupulous methods. I was being too sensitive. Shin Bijuan was startled. Finally, a heartfelt smile appeared on her face. It's mainly because of the environment I grew up in. The people I interact with are all the young ladies and madams of the great clans. I'm used to hearing about the messy affairs of their clans. It's hard not to worry. Song Qing-shu laughed. Don't worry. My clan is different from those clans. When the time comes, your stage will be very large. There's no need to waste energy on low-level matters like fighting for a man's favor. Shin Bijuan grunted. After following him for so long, she vaguely knew what her lover's ambitions were. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel a little fascinated. It wasn't long before the two of them arrived at the Prince of Qi's residence. Hearing that he had returned, Ren Ying was pleasantly surprised. However, when she saw Shun Bijuan at the side, her entire body stiffened. However, she quickly recovered and softly asked, Brother Song, who is this lady? Song Qing-shu laughed and said to Shun Bijuan, How is it? I wasn't wrong, right? That's definitely her reaction. She's clearly a bit unhappy, but she swallows it down and presents her best and most gentle side to others. Ren Ying couldn't help but blush. Brother Song, Shin Bijuan also pursed her lips into a smile. Stepping forward, she bowed. Bijuan greets elder sister Ying. At the same time, she sighed inwardly. In the past, when her bosom friends talked about the women of Jianghu, they would all look down on them. They felt that they spent all day brandishing swords and spears, that they were unsightly, unseemly, and unpresentable. In addition, they were not presentable. However, the woman in front of her was like a white jade immortal. Her entire body was elegant and peerless. In all of Jiangnan, there weren't many women who could compare to her. What was even more astonishing was the graceful and composed temperament that she exuded. She was even more noble than a real princess. Ren Ying hadn't expected that the other party would be so humble. It must be known that within the same clan, older sister and younger sister were not necessarily addressed according to age. Oftentimes, it was a matter of status. She hurriedly helped Shun Bijuan up. Bijuan, quickly get up. We don't have this kind of thing here. At the same time that Shun Bijuan was looking at her, she was also looking at Shun Bijuan. She was secretly shocked by the beauty of the woman in front of her. At the same time, she understood what the book meant when it said that the lotus in the clear water was naturally carved. Shun Bijuan didn't wear any jewelry, nor did she have any makeup on her face. To her, jewelry and makeup were all unnecessary. No matter how precious the jewelry was, it couldn't take away her radiance. No matter how noble the makeup was, it couldn't make her more beautiful. No matter who it was, as long as they looked at her, they would never be able to forget her. Women were naturally jealous. If they met a beautiful woman, they would inevitably think that the other party was pretentious. However, at this moment, Ren Ying didn't have any such thoughts. Shin Bijuan's every movement exuded an elegant and graceful charm. As a woman herself, she couldn't help but admire her. Suddenly, she wanted to bite Song Qing-shu ruthlessly. This bastard was a playboy, so be it. Every time he found an ordinary girl, she would feel a sense of superiority, but he would find some fairy-like girls at the drop of a hat, making her feel a lot of pressure. Bijuan, why does this name sound so familiar? Reninging suddenly exclaimed. She was in charge of the Prince of Qi's intelligence network. Naturally, she knew the name of the missing crown princess. Song Qingshu sighed. It's just as you think. Her surname is Shun. Knowing that she was Shun Bijuan, Reninging's slight unhappiness was instantly replaced by sympathy. She hurriedly consoled. Bijuan, I heard about what happened to your clan. Please restrain your grief. In the future, this will be your home. We are all your family. Sensing the sincerity in his voice, Shen Bijuan's eyes immediately reddened. Seeing the two women snuggling together, the air gradually filled with sorrow. Song Qingshu wanted to break this atmosphere. There are too many people here. Let's go inside first. Chapter 1958. Shen Bijuan let out a low cry and subconsciously hid behind Song Qingshu. Ren Yingying, on the other hand, was calm and collected. She was the saintess of the Sun-Moon sect and had seen all kinds of big scenes. Song Qingshu stood there and saw that the man had many wounds. He didn't know if it was his blood or someone else's. Judging from his short and weak breathing, he was obviously badly injured. I request to see the King of Qi. That person finally managed to catch his breath with great difficulty. Seeing the three people before him, he stammered out. Song Qingshu didn't answer. He came back secretly and didn't want to expose his identity. Ren Yingying walked up and asked, Who are you? Why do you want to see King Qi? Seeing the beautiful and graceful woman in front of him dressed in expensive silk clothing, the man's expression became one of pleasant surprise. Even his speech became much smoother. Is this the Princess of Qi? I am Luo Ryuan, an officer of the front department. It was said that King Qi had many female friends, but there was only one in the King Qi's mansion in Linen. After all, it wasn't a secret that Ren Yingying was in Linen. Hearing him call her the Princess of Qi, Ren Yingying's face reddened, and she subconsciously felt a bit more happy. She even found him to be a bit more pleasing to the eye. However, she quickly came to her senses and glanced worriedly at Shen Bijuan. Seeing that Shen Bijuan didn't reveal any displeasure, she inwardly sighed in relief. General Luo, how did you end up like this? Ren Yingying was responsible for the intelligence work of the King of Qi's mansion, so she had a general understanding of the people in the court. Luo Ryuan was a high-ranking officer in the front palace department, and he seemed to be close to Jia Sherdao. Luo Ryuan smiled bitterly. It's a long story. Ahem, this is not the place to talk. Let's go inside. Seeing that he was seriously injured, Ren Yingying hurriedly asked the servants to help him into the hall and called for a doctor. No, don't call for a doctor. Luo Ryuan stopped her. Ren Yingying frowned. But you're so injured. Luo Ryuan drank a few mouthfuls of the hot tea that was brought over. His spirit was much better. It's nothing, I can still hold on. The main thing is that it's easy for the news to be leaked if we hire a doctor. Ren Yingying was surprised. What news? We just went to assassinate Jia Sherdao and failed. I was the only one who escaped. People are after me, Luo Ryun answered bitterly. Originally, he was just accidentally involved in some kind of vendetta. Who knew that it would be such a big case? The three people in the room were all shocked. Song Qingshu's reaction was still the fastest. He came behind him and transferred a stream of vital energy into his body while examining his injuries. Fortunately, they're all external injuries and did not injure his internal organs. Come, apply some medicine for General Luo and bandage his wounds. Sensing the vigorous internal energy that Song Qingshu transmitted over, Luo Ryuan's entire body trembled. Although he knew of the Prince of Qi, he had never seen Song Qingshu with his own eyes, so he could not recognize him. Ren Yingying smiled. This is the King Qi you've been talking about. Luo Ryuan was shocked. Ignoring his injuries, he rolled off the chair and knelt on the ground. Please save my brothers, King Qi. On the side, Shun Bijuan's beautiful eyes released waves of light. She could see the respect and hope in General Luo's eyes. It was as if her lover was his savior. Originally, she had been a bit hesitant when she ran into the beauties of her lover. She didn't know if her decision was right or wrong, but now she understood that her lover was a great hero. Nothing else was important. A man should live like this. For some reason, Ancestor Gaozu of Han's words suddenly appeared in Shun Bijuan's mind, but she immediately spat it out. Pay, what a bad omen. With my current status, I definitely can't be Empress Lu. At most, I could be considered Lady Qi. Thinking of Lady Qi's miserable fate, she cursed herself for thinking so much nonsense. While her imagination was running wild, Song Qing-shu had already helped Luo Ryuan up. General Luo, please get up. What happened? Luo Ryuan told him what had happened. It turned out that Han Xingzhou had been killed by Jia Shidao in the Yujin Garden, which caused a lot of people to be angry and dissatisfied. Unfortunately, Jia Shidao had taken Han Xingzhou's power. In addition, Zhao Go had acquiesced to it in order to make peace with the Jin Kingdom. Those people could only suppress their dissatisfaction and anger. But Han Xingzhou had been the most powerful man in the past. Even if the monkeys scattered when the tree fell, he still had a group of loyal subordinates. Seeing that the emperor didn't punish Jia Shidao, and that Jia Shidao's power was growing day by day, those people decided to take revenge themselves. Luo Ryuan, Yang Ming, Zhang Xing, and the others planned to kill Jia Shidao in the same way that Jia Shidao had killed Han Xingzhou. Huayu, another officer of the Front Palace Department, didn't get along with Han Xingzhou, but he despised what Jia Shidao had done even more. He was also a firm supporter of the Northern Expedition. Jia Shidao's policies had ruined the efforts of countless righteous people, so he joined the operation even though he wasn't a member of the Han Party. After careful planning and preparation, a group of people set up an ambush on the path that Jia Shidao had to pass on his way to the court. They thought that it would be foolproof, but it turned out that Jia Shidao's seemingly ordinary servants were all top-notch masters. They didn't get rid of Jia Shidao in the time they had planned. Then, they attracted the patrolling soldiers of the Imperial City Department and the Royal Guards. Instead of being ambushed, they were surrounded. In the end, all his brothers were killed, and Yang Ming, Zhang Xing, and Huai were captured. Only he managed to escape. You guys are really like the chivalrous heroes of the pre-Qin dynasty. After listening to the ins and outs of the whole matter, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but sigh with emotion. It should be known that the saying, "the tea cools down when the person is gone," was true. No matter how good Han Xingzhou was to these people when he was alive, he was already dead. Therefore, Han Xingzhou's subordinates could only helplessly accept this ending. After all, they all had families. So who would avenge their former master just because of a moment of passion? It had been a long time since the pre-Qin and Shuhan eras, and people like Yu Rang, Niegai, Tianheng, and 500 warriors had almost disappeared. It was precisely because of this that Luo Ryuan and the others were so valuable. "Are Yang Ming and the others locked up in the heavenly prison?" asked Song Qing-shu. Luo Ryuan nodded and said, "Assassinating a superior is a capital crime. Jia Shidao did the same thing and got promoted, but we were killed by him. This world is so unfair. I hope that King Qi can save them for the sake of your friendship with Minister Han. Originally, we didn't deserve to die, but we couldn't kill Jia Shidao. I really don't want to give up." Song Qing-shu said in a deep voice, "Don't worry. Brother Han died too suddenly, and I didn't have time to save him. I still feel bad about it. Now that I know that you want to avenge him, how can I just stand by and do nothing? I will definitely save them. Thank you, King Qi. From now on, we will do anything for King Qi, even if we have to die 10,000 deaths." Luo Ryuan didn't have much hope for this trip. He only came here because he had nowhere else to go. He didn't expect that there would be a light at the end of the tunnel. "General Luo, have a good rest. Leave the rest to us." Ren Ying asked someone to help Luo Ryuan get bandaged and applied medicine. Then she said to Song Qing-shu with a worried face, "Qing-shu, if you don't pay attention to this, you will have a falling out with Jia Shidao. Is it really worth it at this critical moment?" Song Qingshu replied in a deep voice. First of all, I do want to do something for my friend, Han Xingzhou. Second, I appreciate the loyalty of these people. Not to mention that they are high-ranking officers in the important departments of the Yamen, and they may be of great use in the future. Even if they are ordinary people, I will still save them. Recommended a book, Xiaoming's Martial God of Medicine, which was also serialized on Zongheng. It was fat and ready to be slaughtered. Chapter 1959. Seeing that he was thinking, Ren Yingying didn't say anything else. How are you going to save them? Let's get this done quickly. These people have just been arrested, and although Jia Shidao hates them to the core, he still wants to maintain his reputation even though he's a whore. He'll definitely pretend to ask Zhao Go for instructions on how to deal with them. It'll take a lot of time for him to go back and forth and wait for the death penalty to be passed down. During this time, the defense forces probably haven't been set up properly. I'll take advantage of this time to rescue them, and then immediately send them out of Lin and city before Jia Shidao can react, Song Qingshu answered. Are we taking action tonight? Ren Yingying nodded slightly. This was to obtain the greatest benefit with the smallest price. If he was fast enough, he might not even need to pay any price. She believed that with her lover's martial arts, it was possible for him to achieve this step. Song Qingshu grunted. I'll sneak into the dungeon after nightfall. Before that, make some arrangements to send Luo Ryuan out of the city as soon as possible. Arrange for him to go to the Golden Snake Camp first. Okay. Ren Yingying had been in Prince Chi's mansion for a long time, so it was no problem for her to send a person out of the city. Luo Ryuan is fine. After all, he hasn't been caught, so he's a small target. But after you save those people, the court will definitely be alerted. Even if they leave Lin, and the navy along the river will definitely be more strict. They will also set up checkpoints everywhere. It will be even more difficult to send them away. Song Qingshu answered in a low voice. By then, the cities in the north will definitely have arrest warrants everywhere. The west along the river and the east will also be strictly controlled. However, the south is the heart of the court. They can't cover everything in a hurry, so the south will be relatively empty. I will take them directly to Shanin, and then go to the sea through the nearby estuary to the north to the territory of the Golden Snake Camp. In this way, we can bypass the navy near Linen. In addition, Song Qingshu paused and looked at Shun Bijuan with pity. In addition, take her to the Shan Garden to pay respects to her parents. Shun Bijuan was stunned. She didn't expect that he was still thinking about her at this time. Her eyes were soon covered with a layer of mist, and it took her a lot of effort to stop herself from crying. Ren Yingying said softly, Then I will also arrange a trip to Mount Neen for you later. You should rest well and conserve your energy for the night. Suddenly noticing that the other party was staring at her, she couldn't help but blush. Why are you looking at me so strangely? Song Qingshu asked doubtfully. Aren't you angry at all? Ren Yingying was confused. Why should I be angry? Song Qingshu sighed and said, Are you angry that I'm leaving you right after we've just reunited, and it's to send another woman off? Ren Yingying said, What nonsense are you talking about? You just wanted to save people. Sister Bijuan's life is so pitiful, and I'm not a cold-hearted person. How could I be angry at her? Don't make fun of her. Sister Yingying, Shun Bijuan was really impressed by Ren Yingying's temperament. She suddenly realized that compared to Ren Yingying, she was really insignificant. She was still struggling with love, but Ren Yingying's heart was filled with love. Song Qingshu was also moved to tears, and he couldn't help but embrace Ren Yingying in his arms, wantonly kissing her smooth cheeks. Ren Yingying was so embarrassed that she quickly pushed him away. What are you doing? Hurry up and go rest. Don't affect the night. I'll go arrange for someone to send Luo Ryuan away. She had always been very thin-skinned. Now that Song Qingshu was being so intimate in front of others, she didn't know what to do. She simply said that and hurriedly left. Sister Yingying is really a good person. Shun Bijuan secretly wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes and sighed. Song Qingshu smiled and said, I told you before not to worry, but you didn't believe me. Now you can relax, right? Shin Bijuan nodded. I also want to learn from Sister Ying. She ran away as if she was escaping. Song Qingshu was baffled. Where are you going? What are you going to learn from Ying? Shin Bijuan's voice came from afar. Go rest first. I'm going to take a stroll around the residence. Song Qingshu smiled helplessly and returned to his room to rest. In the middle of the night, Song Qingshu quietly left the Prince of Qi's residence. His figure merged with the darkness of the night as he hurried in the direction of the heavenly prison. He was already very familiar with the heavenly prison. Adding on the fact that his martial arts were getting better and better, it wasn't difficult for him to sneak in silently. He quickly found the people that Luo Ryuan had described. At this moment, they were covered in blood and were sleeping in a pile of straw on the ground. Yang Ming, Zhang Xing, Huayu? Song Qingshu called them a few times, but none of them woke up. From their barely audible breathing, Song Qingshu could tell that the three of them had been heavily injured and their bodies were extremely weak. He took out a few 9 Revolutions bear snake pills and fed them to the three of them. Then, he circulated his internal energy to dissolve the pill's effects. The 9 Revolutions bear snake pill was the carefree sex best panacea. Now that Song Qingshu was the supreme of the Vulture Palace, he naturally didn't lack such panacea. With the nourishment of the 9 Revolutions bear snake pill, the three of them woke up one by one. Song Qingshu took the opportunity to say, Generals, I was specially entrusted by Luo Ryuan to save you. Huayu and the other two looked at each other. How should we address this hero? Song Qingshu knew that the most important thing when interacting with others was sincerity. Moreover, he had to win their hearts, and it wouldn't take long before he told them his identity. Thus, he didn't hide anything from them. I am Song Qingshu. Today, Luo Ryuan hid in the King of Qi's residence after being heavily injured. As he continued to use his internal energy to treat the three of them, he roughly explained what had happened. Greetings, King of Qi. We are truly unable to repay your kindness in saving our lives. After learning his identity, the three of them no longer had any doubts. Everyone knew that Han Xingzhou and Song Qingshu were on good terms. Right now, only he had the ability and the courage to save them. Everyone, please rise, Song Qingshu said hurriedly. Let me get you out of here first. We can discuss the rest in detail later. All right. The three of them had been prepared to die, but they didn't expect that there would be a light at the end of the tunnel. Their survival instincts made them excited. Just as they were about to lead them out, Song Qingshu suddenly raised his hand. Someone's coming. I'll hide first. With that, his figure flashed, disappearing into the shadows. Although his martial arts were high, he had only intended to silently save the three of them. He didn't expect that he would have to fight his way out of the imperial prison. Hiding in the shadows, Song Qingshu found it strange. He had originally thought that the newcomer was a patrolling soldier or a prison guard who had accidentally passed by. However, the newcomer's footsteps were light and graceful. Even in Jianghu, he would be a first-rate expert. How could an ordinary soldier or prison guard have such skills? Soon, a black-clothed man arrived at the three cell. He said to them, Do you want to live or die? The three of them looked at each other. At this moment, they had the same doubts as Song Qingshu. They didn't know who this person was and didn't dare to act rashly. Immediately, they feigned civility and said, Who wants to die? However, we have committed a crime punishable by death. How can we live? Wrong. The black-clothed man cut them off resolutely, his voice full of arrogance. As long as you agree to join the Mansion of Spirits, you can live. Chapter 1960. Mansion of Spirits. Song Qingshu, who was hiding in the dark, felt his heart skip a beat. Previously, he had let old Saber Honcho slip away, and he had thought that the clues in Mansion of Spirits had been cut off. He had never expected that he would once again find a clue here. It was really like a glimmer of hope at the darkest hour. The three people in the cell were also confused. Huayu asked, What is Mansion of Spirits? The black-robed man replied, Mansion of Spirits, as the name suggests, everyone inside is a spirit. No matter how big of a crime you committed outside, As long as you enter Mansion of Spirits, you will obtain a new identity, and all your previous debts and grudges will naturally be written off. Zhang Xing sneered. How arrogant! We have committed a capital offense. If the imperial court wants to kill us, can you protect us? The man in black said proudly, Of course we can protect you. There is no one in this world that our Mansion of Spirits cannot protect. As long as you agree, I can guarantee your safety. Why? You're already dead. Even if you're cheated, there is no loss. If it is true, you can escape. I don't know why you are still hesitating. Seeing the three of them looking at each other, the man in black didn't know that Song Qingshu had been here before. The three people in front of him didn't want to have anything to do with Mansion of Spirits. Zhang Xing was about to refuse, but Yang Ming, who had always been calm, quickly interrupted him. What you said is too unbelievable. We need to think about it. The man in black frowned. What do you have to think about? Why you also cooperated? We know that there is no free lunch in this world. You made this Mansion of Spirits so mysterious and spent so much effort to save us. In the future, you will definitely need us to repay you. The man in black nodded. His eyes showed approval. Yes, we will need you to repay us in the future. But this is also in the future. Why not get through this crisis first? Why you shook his head? In this world, death is not the scariest thing. There are many things that make people wish they were dead. So, we need to think about it. Seeing that his words were reasonable, the man in black didn't worry. All right, you can think about it. However, I can only give you one day. I will come back tomorrow to ask you again. If you miss this opportunity, you will have to wait for the court's order of execution. At this time, a sound came from the corridor in the distance. The black-clothed man quickly said, I can't stay here for long. Think about it carefully. I'll be leaving first. After saying that, he quickly left. Song Qingshu flashed out of the shadows and said to the three people in the cell, Wait a moment. I'll go check on this person's situation, then come back to save you. The three people in the cell did not object. After all, although they were sentenced to death, they would not be killed in a day or two. When Song Qingshu came out of the prison, he quickly found the traces of the black-clothed man and carefully followed him. The black-clothed man's qigong was absolutely first class in Jianghu, and he was extremely cautious, almost to the point of looking back 3 times with every step. However, Song Qingshu's qigong was so good that it was completely beyond his imagination, so he did not notice that he had an extra tail. The black-clothed man deliberately made a few big circles, and finally, after making sure that no one was following him, he sped up and rushed in a certain direction. Song Qingshu had been following him until he saw him enter a magnificent mansion. King Yi's mansion. This was far beyond Song Qingshu's expectation. He had always thought that the mastermind behind the Spirit Mountain Manor was Jia Sherdao, but now it seemed that King Yi had become the biggest suspect. In order to confirm his guess, Song Qingshu also sneaked into the mansion, far behind the black-clothed man, and avoided many patrolling guards and hidden guards along the way. Song Qingshu secretly frowned, thinking that this black-clothed man could not be here to assassinate King Yi. Could he? After the troubles in Sichuan and Wutang Mountain, this was very much in line with the Spirit Mountain Manor style. Watching the black-clothed man enter a room that looked like a study, Song Qingshu did not have to deliberately get close to him. With his current skills, if he listened carefully, no movement within a radius of dozens of feet could be hidden from him. Why are you back so soon? A young voice sounded, full of arrogance and indifference of a superior. Song Qingshu was stunned, because he had already recognized the owner of the voice. When the imperial court officially conferred him the title of King Qi, King Yi came to congratulate him in person. In addition, the two of them had met several times in the imperial court, so it was natural that Song Qingshu recognized the voice. Is old sword Hancho really King Yi? Song Qingshu couldn't help but be confused for a moment. Master, those people said that they need to think about it. The black-clothed man's voice sounded, and he roughly told him what had just happened in the prison. They want to live, but they don't want to pay the price. How can there be such a good thing in the world? King Yi sneered in the room. When I saw them assassinate Jia Sherdao, I quite admired their courage. Now it seems that they are just indecisive people. Please forgive me for speaking out of turn. Although these people have some skills, they assassinated Jia Sherdao. If we sell them and the Jia family finds out, I'm afraid. The black-clothed man hesitated for a while and said. Kingy snorted and said, can't we just not let them know? Although we are working closely together now, if there's a chance, I'm afraid we will be swallowed by Jia Sherdao. So, it is better to have a few chess pieces in advance just in case. After all, these people are the backbone officers of the 3 offices, and they have a lot of connections in the army. However, their identities prevent them from fully using the potential of these connections. In the future, with my support, we can use them to control the 3 offices of the Imperial Army to a certain extent. What's more, these people have a deep hatred for Jia Sherdao, so we don't have to worry about them being recruited by Jia Sherdao in the future. The black-clothed man couldn't help but sigh and said, Master, you are really far-sighted. I can only see the immediate benefits. Don't flatter me. Although Kingy said so, his tone was full of pride. By the way, how is the contact with the faceless man? Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. According to Li Qingluo, the faceless man and the general were the 2 most mysterious and supreme people in the Mansion of Spirits. He didn't expect that this time, he not only learned the true identity of old Saber Honcho, but also could hear the news of the most mysterious faceless man. According to the news from the channel, the faceless man has replied and said that he will appear at the scheduled place on time. We don't need to worry about anything else, the black-clothed man replied. You really don't want us to arrange it? Prince Yi said to himself. If he doesn't come, or if he's late, all the plans will fall short of success. The black-clothed man asked tentatively, why is this faceless man so arrogant? He didn't give face to Master several times. I don't know where he gets his confidence from. Chapter 1961. Hearing the black-clothed man's question, Song Qingshu was overjoyed. He wished the black-clothed man would ask more questions like this so that he might have a chance to find out who the faceless man was. Unfortunately, Prince Yi did not give him the chance. He reprimanded him with some displeasure. You've been with me for so long, yet you still don't know the rules. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Next time you test me like this, whether it's intentional or not, the result will be the same. I deserve to die. I deserve to die. Although he could not see, he could still imagine the cold sweat on the black-clothed man's face. Song Qingshu, who was outside, secretly lamented that it was a pity. Judging from the information he had received, perhaps only Prince Yi knew the identity of the faceless man. But his identity was sensitive, and he couldn't capture him for interrogation. Of course, there was another reason. He didn't want to alert the enemy too early. After all, at present, the conspiracy of the Mansion of Spirits was likely to be beneficial to him. After listening for a while, Song Qingshu saw that he could not get any more valuable information, so he quietly left Prince Yi's mansion and headed in the direction of the prison. Now that Hua Yu and the others were being targeted by the Mansion of Spirits, he had to rescue them as soon as possible to avoid any accidents. For a few moments, Song Qingshu somewhat admired Prince Yi. Not only did great minds think alike on the issue of Hua Yu and others, but more importantly, he actually made such a big move in the Mansion of Spirits. In fact, it was very normal. Now that the position of Crown Prince was taken, if nothing happened, the throne would have nothing to do with him, so he could only make changes himself. Now, the biggest question is, what is the plan of the Mansion of Spirits? Song Qingshu could vaguely guess from what happened on Wu-Tang Mountain, but he had no clue who the faceless man and the general were. Back in the prison, Hua Yu and others had been waiting for him. Seeing him return, they were all excited. Follow me. Song Qingshu opened the cell door with Sword Qi and removed the shackles on their feet. Will this implicate Prince Qi? Hua Yu was a little hesitant. After all, breaking into the prison was a serious crime. Not to mention that he was just a prince. Even the crown prince would not be able to bear the consequences. Breaking into the prison openly will certainly implicate me, but it will be fine as long as I don't let anyone recognize me. At that time, who would know that it was me who robbed it? Song Qingshu couldn't help but think that Han Xingzhou was such a kind person. He was about to die, but he was still worried about others. No wonder he still chose to join the operation to assassinate Jia Sherdao, even though he didn't get along with Han Xingzhou. Hearing this, Huai was finally relieved, but Yang Ming asked, "What happened to the Mansion of Spirits just now? They seem very mysterious and powerful. If we trick them like this, will they join forces with the imperial court to hunt us down? If we implicate the king of Qi?" Song Qingshu replied with a smile, "The Mansion of Spirits is just an organization with wild ambitions. It is fated that it cannot show itself in the light of day. I am not even afraid of the imperial court, so why would I be afraid of a mere Mansion of Spirits?" That's true. The three of them thought about it and agreed. They used to be high-ranking officers in the army, so they naturally knew that there were many gangs and organizations in the Jianghu, but in the face of the power of the government, they were nothing. By the way, Song Qingshu suddenly remembered something. "Your families," the three of them answered. "We are not reckless people. Of course, we prepared an escape route for our families in the beginning. Fortunately, we are all single, and there aren't many people in our families, so it is easy to move them." Seeing that they had already arranged for their families, Song Qingshu couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. After all, Song Qingshu had done something like this many times, and he didn't have enough security for Hua Yu and the other two, so he didn't disturb the guards until the three of them were taken out of the prison. Of course, after another hour, the guard on duty would discover that the sleeping acupoint of the guard on duty had been struck. At that time, it would be impossible to hide it. However, this hour was more than enough. After leaving the prison, Song Qingshu didn't bring Hua Yu and the other two back to the king of Qi's residence. Instead, he directly jumped over the city walls and left. The city walls of Lin were tall, the moat was wide, and there were soldiers patrolling at all times. Ordinary Jianghu experts really couldn't cross over. Even Song Qingshu had to make several trips to bring the three of them out of the city. Ren Yingying had long been waiting outside the city. Seeing him arrive, she couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. "You were 2 hours late. I thought something had happened. If not for the fact that I didn't hear the sounds of fighting, I would have entered the city to investigate. I made you worry. I just happened to run into an unexpected situation." Song Qingshu roughly explained what happened at Mansion of Spirits. Old Saber Honcho is actually Prince E. Ren Yingying was also extremely surprised. Song Qingshu nodded. "I'll tell you the details later. We have to hurry and send them away." Ren Yingying also understood the gravity of the situation and didn't ask any more questions. She led the three of them towards the carriage. "Greetings, Princess." Hua Yu and the other two simultaneously bowed to Ren Yingying. Although the imperial court hadn't officially conferred the title of Princess of Qi, even if it did, it would definitely be between the two princesses. The princess's wedding had yet to be held. Moreover, there was a beautiful and mysterious woman in the king of Qi's residence for a long time. Over time, the officials of Lin and began to refer to her as Princess of Qi. Hua Yu and the other two had long heard of Princess of Qi's heavenly beauty. The woman in front of them was even more beautiful than all the women they had seen before combined. Moreover, she had a calm and noble air about her. As a result, they didn't hesitate to guess her identity. However, their voices soon came to an abrupt halt, because when they opened the curtain of the carriage, they discovered that there was a devastatingly beautiful woman sitting in the carriage. At first glance, the three of them felt somewhat ashamed of their inferiority, as if the terrifying beauty of the other party made them not dare to look at her directly. They then turned their heads to look at Ren Yingying. For a moment, they were unable to determine who was superior. For a moment, they really did not know who was the legendary fairy-like Princess of Qi. Song Qingshu patted their shoulders and said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and get in the carriage. We have to hurry before the people in the imperial prison can react." Hua Yu and the other two finally got in the carriage. However, they all sat in a corner and didn't dare to breathe too loudly. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but laugh. You weren't even afraid of assassinating Jia Sherdao in the midst of thousands of soldiers. Why are you so nervous now? They laughed awkwardly, and Zhang Xing was the first to speak. Of course, we weren't afraid of killing the enemy, but we didn't know where to put our hands when we were so close to a woman. Furthermore, the two princesses are so beautiful. Ren Yingying and Shen Bijuan blushed when they heard how the two princesses addressed them. They didn't know how to react. Song Qing-shu smiled and changed the topic to dispel the awkwardness. By the way, Yingying, has General Luo made arrangements? Ren Yingying nodded and said, I sent him out of the city during the day. At that time, Linen's city wasn't under martial law, so it wasn't difficult. Even if the imperial court issued a warrant for his arrest, I'm afraid we won't be able to catch up with him. Hua Yu and the other two stood up and bowed. My lord, princess, there's nothing we can do to repay you for saving our lives. We can only do our best to repay you. Chapter 1962. We have plenty of cows and horses at home. There's no need to trouble the generals. Ren Yingying pursed her lips and smiled. The generals are talented and are destined to be famous figures on the battlefield. If we really asked you to be our cows and horses, wouldn't we be blind? She smiled and made a joke, which didn't annoy Hua Yu and the others. Instead, it brought them closer. After talking with the three of them, Song Qing-shu gradually understood the changes in the imperial court. After Han Chuanzhou was killed, the Han faction's forces were like a group of dragons without a leader, and they were severely suppressed. Jing Tan, who was a minister, had always been Han Xingzhou's ally. After Han Xingzhou's death, Jia Sherdao found an excuse to impeach him and demoted him to another place. Another minister, Wu Qian, was even worse. When the news of Wu Shi's treason came, the entire Wu family was confiscated. If it weren't for many people who vouched for him, his entire family would have been killed. It turned out that Wu Shi hadn't betrayed the Han faction, and the court restored the Wu family. However, the Wu family had already been destroyed by Jia Sherdao. The entire Wu family was either killed or exiled. In the end, the rebellion was symbolically restored, and it was no longer as prosperous as it used to be. Speaking of this, Hua Yu and the others were filled with righteous indignation. As soldiers, they were full of sympathy and anger for the Wu family, which had been wronged for generations. This was another important reason why they had tried to assassinate Jia Sherdao. Qian Xiangzu and Xue Ji were now in charge of the executive office, and the two of them had always been close to Jia Sherdao. In the Privy Council, Zhao Kuei, the Privy Council member, Xiao Ming, and Zhao Rushu were also Jia Sherdao's people. In the Third Bureau, Chun Ziqiang was originally pro-Han, but now he was replaced by Lin Ruhai, Jia Sherdao's relative by marriage. In addition, Jia Sherdao had been promoted to be the Minister of State of the Pingzhong Army, so it could be said that he had military, political, and financial power. Pingzhong Military Minister. Pingzhong Military Minister. People who didn't know better would think the latter sounded more prestigious, but there was a huge difference in their power. The latter could only intervene in the important affairs of the country, while the former could manage all the affairs of the country. Therefore, Jia Sherdao was even more powerful than Han Xingzhou at his peak. Song Qing-shu's expression was a bit solemn. Jia Sherdao's development was a bit like that of a big boss. Zhao Go was a person who valued power, so how could he allow someone to be so powerful? Unknowingly, the carriage had already arrived at the ferry. The group of people alighted from the carriage and boarded the prepared boat. Ren Yingying stopped at the shore and said, I will not accompany you all. I still need to return to the Linen Bureau to take charge and make a corresponding response to the court's reaction. Song Qing-shu nodded and said apologetically, I'm sorry. I have to say, I'm going back to see you. A faint blush appeared on Ren Yingying's white, jade-like cheeks. I'm still looking at you. Don't hold me back. Business is more important. Song Qing-shu knew she was shy. Okay, I'll come back as soon as I can. Ren Yingying waved her hand and said, You don't have to come back as soon as possible. Stay with Sister Bijuan and Shanine for a while. I'm sure she wants to spend more time with her deceased parents. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but say, "What more can I ask for with a wife like this?" Ren Ying couldn't stand his enthusiasm anymore. She was worried that he would do something too intimate in front of so many people, so she quickly pulled her hand back and left. Song Qing-shu knew that the heavenly prison must have noticed something was wrong. He didn't dare to delay, so he jumped on the boat and started the journey south. Because speed was the priority this time, Ren Ying didn't prepare a big boat. Instead, she prepared a fast boat. They arrived near Shanin in about one night. Later, the court issued a wanted order, and all the states and counties started to investigate passers-by. They didn't know that they had already left the encirclement. When they arrived at Shanin, Ren Ying had already arranged for people to meet them. Song Qing-shu sent the three of them to the boat. They would go out to sea from the east and then go north by sea. He told them to go to the Golden Snake Battalion's territory to recover first and wait for him to summon them in the future. He still needed them to fulfill their ambitions. Hua Yu and the other two were already disappointed with the court after the previous incident. Plus, Song Qing-shu and Jia Shidao were enemies, so they naturally agreed. After Hua Yu and the other two left, Song Qing-shu took Shun Bijuan to the Shun Garden. Ever since the murder that night, the once lively Shun Garden had been abandoned. It was overgrown with weeds, and there was a sense of ruin everywhere. Along the way, Shun Bijuan told Song Qing-shu what every place used to look like and the beautiful memories she had when she was a child. When they arrived in front of a dozen graves in the backyard, she couldn't hold back her emotions anymore. She knelt in front of her parents' graves and cried sadly. Xin Yin was, after all, a high-ranking official of the imperial court. Although the imperial court had not been able to find out who the murderer was, they did not slack off in collecting the corpses of the Shin family. They even built graves for them and buried the entire Shun family properly. Song Qing-shu knew that any kind of comfort would be useless at this time, so he just stood there quietly and accompanied her. Shin Bijuan cried until she finally fainted. Song Qing-shu secretly sighed and held her in his arms. He didn't try to wake her up. Fainting was the body's mechanism to protect itself. It was better to let her have a good sleep. After an unknown amount of time, Shin Bijuan finally woke up, seeing that she was in her lover's arms. Her cold heart finally had a trace of warmth. "Brother Song, I want to stay here for a while longer to properly observe the mourning for my parents. I can't even see them one last time. Just thinking about it makes me feel unfilial." Before Song Qing-shu could reply, Shun Bijuan continued, "Brother Song, it's fine for me to stay here alone. You don't need to stay with me. I know you have many things on your hands right now, so don't delay them because of me." Song Qing-shu's brows furrowed. "How can I do that? How can I be at ease leaving you here alone?" Not to mention that Shun Bijuan was a beauty that could cause the downfall of the city. She was just a normal girl. It was not safe for her to stay in this desolate and uninhabited Shun Garden, especially since the murderer of the Shun Garden had not been found yet. Who knew if the murderer would come to the Shun Garden again to take a look? What would happen if he saw Shun Bijuan then? Shin Bijuan said, "Brother Song, didn't you teach me martial arts? I'm not as weak as before." Song Qing-shu shook his head and said, "The time you've spent learning martial arts is too short. Right now, you're just a bit stronger than a normal person. Not to mention the experts of the Jianghu, even if you met a second or third-class person, you wouldn't be able to handle them." Shin Bijuan's brows were filled with worry. She bit her lips and had a tearful appearance. "But I really want to stay here with my parents." Seeing her delicate and pitiful appearance, Song Qing-shu secretly sighed at this demoness. It was likely that no man in this world would have the heart to refuse a woman like this. He was about to say something when his expression suddenly changed. "Be quiet. Someone has come to the Shan Garden." Chapter 1963. Shin Bijuan's face paled, and she said in a small voice, "Has the murderer come?" Her mind was thinking of revenge, and her first thought was of the murderer who had bathed the Shun Garden in blood. Song Qing-shu was not sure. He quietly led Shin Bijuan to the direction of the commotion and quickly came to a wall in the Shun Garden. He saw a middle-aged man in blue standing motionlessly in front of the wall. After a long time, he sighed. This is... Shinbijuan looked at the lines of graceful writing on the wall. The world is thin, and human feelings are evil. The rain sends the dusk, and the flowers fall easily. The dawn wind dries, and the tear stains remain. I wish to write on my heart, but I speak alone. Difficult, difficult, difficult. People are separated, and today is not yesterday. The sick soul is often like a swing. The horn sounds cold, the night wanes. Afraid that someone will ask, I swallow my tears and pretend to be happy. Hide, hide, hide. Song Qing-shu answered. The last time Lu Yu went to Shen Garden, he accidentally saw his former wife Tang Wan and her current husband visiting the garden. In a moment of sadness, he wrote the poem Phoenix on a hairpin, red and mellow hands. This phoenix on a hairpin, the world is fickle, must be Tang Wan's response to Lu Yu's letter. As someone from Mountain Yin, Shun Bijuan naturally knew about the past between Lu Yu and Tang Wan. She couldn't help sighing. Two people who love each other deeply can't be together. They really are not fated to be together. Song Qing-shu did not agree. In the end, it was because of Mother Lu's opposition. Then one of them married again, and the other took a new wife. If it were me, even if the entire world opposed it, I would still marry the one I love. The words of the parents are very important. Shin Bijuan didn't agree at first, but when she thought of her lover's abilities, she couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. Big Brother Song, there aren't many people in this world that can compare to your boldness. King Chi's lecture is correct. I was too weak and did not know how to fight back, causing one of her to marry someone else. The two did not deliberately conceal their conversation, so it startled the man in blue. He turned around and saw it was Lu Yu. Brother Wu Guan is a filial son. It is easy for me to say this. I hope Brother Lu does not take offense. Song Qing-shu bowed. Lu Yu shook his head. King Chi is right. If I had insisted, we would not have ended up like this. Song Qing-shu advised. Brother Wu Guan, the two of you are actually living quite well now. The young lady from the Wang family that you married is of good character and good family background. Miss Tang's marriage to the royal prince of Beihai is also a very good choice. Most importantly, the royal prince of Beihai treats her very well. I'm sure Brother Wu Guan can see that. In history, Tang Wan's later husband, Zhao Shicheng, was very good to Tang Wan. After meeting Lu Yu in the Shun Garden, he deliberately left to give the two some time to be alone. He loved Tang Wan for the rest of his life. Because Tang Wan's meeting at the Shun Garden brought back sad memories, she died not long after. Zhao Shicheng was heartbroken and did not marry again. Compared to Lu Yu, his love was deeper and more admirable. Correct. Lu Yu grimaced. I will not hide it from King Chi. If Zhao Shicheng did not treat her well, while I would feel pity, I would not feel so much pain. Seeing the two of them in perfect harmony, I feel like my heart is being cut by a knife. I know that this is a very despicable way of thinking, but I cannot help it. Song Qing-shu said, Brother Lu is clearly a man of integrity to speak so frankly. There is no saint in this world. As a man, it is normal to have such thoughts. Lu Yu sighed. King Chi does not need to comfort me. Every time I have this thought, I hate myself even more. At this time, he suddenly noticed Shin Bijuan behind Song Qing-shu and made a sound of surprise. This is not, Shin Bijuan bowed. Greetings, Uncle Lu. The Lu and Shun families were both in Shanin City. Lu Yu and Tang Wan often went to the Shun Gardens to play, so the two families could be said to be old friends. Lu Yu was also a generation older, so he normally addressed Shin Bijuan as uncle. Recognizing Shun Bijuan, Lu Yu looked in shock at Song Qing-shu. King Chi, what is going on? Seeing him act like he had kidnapped the crown princess, Song Qing-shu grimaced. This matter is a long story. Let's find a place to sit down and slowly chat. Okay, this Lu prepared a small boat with some wine and food on it. Let's go up and chat. Shanin City was filled with small bridges and flowing water. Not only was rowing a boat extremely pleasant for cultivation, it was also extremely secretive. There was no need to worry about outsiders eavesdropping or seeing anything. After the three of them boarded the ship, Song Qing-shu told them the ins and outs of the whole matter while drinking and chatting. After hearing the whole story, Lu Yu sighed. Miss Shun, you must have suffered a lot. Shin Bijuan was even more open-minded. In hindsight, I don't feel that it was difficult. Being able to meet Brother Song was the greatest fortune of my life. As an experienced person, how could Lu Yu not see the adoration in her eyes? Especially when he noticed the intimacy between the two of them. He guessed that the two of them had already decided to marry each other. He couldn't help but look worriedly at Song Qing-shu. But her identity, Shin Bijuan, was the future crown princess. For someone as loyal and patriotic as him, the situation in front of him was hard to accept. Song Qing-shu explained, the imperial court has long since ceased to recognize her as the crown princess. The people in the imperial city even wish for her to die. He then roughly described how the Imperial City Department had tried to assassinate her in Liao. Shui's people are so daring. Lu Yu stood up angrily. However, he came from a large family and understood the rules of the game of the imperial family. He quickly realized that this was most likely incited by the people in the imperial palace. He sat down dejectedly. This is too disappointing. Song Qing-shu's tone was a little sarcastic. Even two emperors, countless princesses, concubines, and noble ladies were trapped in the empire, yet they didn't try to save them, let alone a future crown princess whose title has yet to be confirmed. Lu Yu's expression changed. Finally, he let out a long sigh. It's a pity that Minister Han's northern expedition failed. More than a decade of preparation was destroyed in a single day. He was a staunch advocate of war. Otherwise, Song Qing-shu would not have said so much to him. Right? Minister Han was unjustly killed. Many of his subordinates were implicated. How is the Lu family? Song Qing-shu asked. Lu Yu smiled bitterly. Of course we can't escape. Everyone in the Lu family who holds a position in the imperial court has been removed. There are only a few scattered people who hold small positions. Now, the Lu family has started to close their doors and guard themselves. No one will be promoted for a short period of time. They aren't even allowed to leave Shanin for fear that others will use this as a pretext. Song Qing-shu was slightly surprised. Compared to the Wu family and the Chun family who were destroyed, the Lu family basically didn't suffer much damage. They only lost their positions and didn't lose any members of the family. If someone promoted them in the future, they could instantly recover to their peak or even surpass it. Lu Yu cupped his hands. Speaking of which, this is all thanks to King Qi. Chapter 1964. Thanks to me. Song Qing-shu was somewhat astonished. Lu Yu replied. Miss Rin of the Qi household came forward and made a lot of connections. In addition, we are related by marriage to the Gusu Wang family. Our Lu family was able to escape calamity. So that's how it is. Song Qing-shu secretly sighed. Ren Ying really did a lot of things in Lin. Lu Yu suddenly asked curiously, That's right. Why did the Prince of Qi come as Shanin this time? Song Qing-shu pointed to the beauty beside him. Bijuan wants to come back to pay respects to her parents. You also know that something like that happened in the Shun Garden. Shin Bijuan sadly shed tears. When I came back, I saw that my parents' grave was left unattended. I was even sadder and decided to build a hut next to the Shun Garden to observe mourning. Song Qing-shu held her soft little hand. But I really don't feel at ease leaving you here alone. First, your identity is sensitive. If someone with ulterior motives discovers you, it is likely to bring about a fatal disaster. Second, you are so beautiful. There is no one in the Shun Garden. What if you attract some lawless people? Lu Yu said, If the Prince of Qi trusts you, you can let Miss Shun temporarily stay in the Lu residence. Now that the Lu family has closed their doors, I presume that Miss Shun's information will not be leaked. It will be enough to guarantee her safety. This. Song Qing-shu sank into deep thought. Shin Bijuan timely opened her mouth and said, Brother Song, let me stay. I really want to spend more time with my parents. Song Qing-shu finally nodded. That's fine, right? Brother Wu Guan, my relationship with your matriarch is not very good. Can we hide this matter from the other people in the Lu residence? At the Liu residence, he had ruthlessly slapped that old woman's face. He couldn't implicate Bijuan because of this. Liu nodded. Yes, when the time comes, arrange for Miss Shun to live in a courtyard in the inner residence. Oh, let Cheng Yaojia live with her. Cheng Yaojia? Thinking of that extremely bashful young woman who would blush at the slightest provocation, Song Qingshu felt his heart heat up. He hurriedly restrained his thoughts and dispelled those erotic images in his mind. We're not far from the Liu mansion. Why don't we talk after we enter the mansion? Liu Yu stood at the bow of the boat and gazed into the distance. The few of them had been chatting on the boat for a long time. The boat was moving with the current, and they could vaguely see the walls of the Liu manor. All right, there were many people in the Liu mansion that Song Qingshu wanted to see. It would be good for him to personally make arrangements for Shen Bijuan. The three of them did not enter from the main entrance, but found a side entrance and entered a side courtyard of the Liu residence. He saw a beautiful woman dressed as a young married woman playing on a swing in the courtyard. Her hair was like fog, and her cheeks were as white as snow. However, there was a trace of worry lingering between her brows. Yaojia, look who has arrived, Liu called out with a smile. Surprisingly, that beautiful young woman was Cheng Yaojia. Cheng Yaojia suspiciously turned her head around. When she saw Song Qingshu's appearance, she couldn't help but cry out in surprise. She had never expected that just a moment ago she would see him in person. Her expression was bashful, and her pretty face was like a rose petal. Sister Cheng. Shen Bijuan was very happy to see her. The two of them had lived in Shanin City and were considered close friends in the past. Now that they had returned to the Shun Garden, things had changed. How could she not be happy to see her old friend? By Bijuan? Cheng Yaojia saw that it was Shen Bijuan who was behind Song Qingshu. She couldn't help but blush. How could Liu bring her to see Song Qingshu? Of course, he was talking about Shen Bijuan. Bijuan, where have you been these days? Is everything okay? Seeing Cheng Yaojia's evasive eyes and her guilty conscience deliberately not looking at him, Song Qingshu smiled knowingly. Hearing her sweet and coquettish voice, he suddenly remembered how she had panted in his arms. For a moment, he felt his whole body heat up. Song Qingshu felt that this was not very kind, so he quickly calmed down and asked, "That's right. How come I don't see Guanyin?" Hearing him ask directly, Cheng Yaojia couldn't avoid it. She lowered her head and softly replied. After he was dismissed, he was a bit depressed. He planned to wander the Jianghu. He said he wanted to practice his swordsmanship. So it's like that. Song Qingshu was startled. He remembered that he had taught Liu Guanyin the BCS swordsmanship. Presumably, he had been frustrated in the officialdom and had focused his energy on martial arts. In addition, because of his health, he had a beautiful woman at home that he couldn't touch. No one would be able to endure that kind of torment. He might as well use this as an excuse to go out and hide for a period of time. Liu took this opportunity to explain his background. Miss Shun is temporarily staying at the Liu residence. The fewer people who know about it, the better. I am a man, and it is not convenient for me to take care of her. After thinking about it, only you're the most suitable person in the residence. Cheng Yaojia hastily replied, I happen to be very lonely. Bijuan is my good friend. Moreover, Brother Song has done us a great favor. Naturally, we will not shirk from this small favor. Song Qingshu smiled and said, Thank you very much, madam. Cheng Yaojia's face became even redder. She pursed her lips and said, No need to thank me. Liu smiled and said, Prince Qi, it is already late. Why don't you stay at the residence for the night? I was just thinking of having a good drink with you. I will accept your invitation. To be able to drink and chat with such a great writer whose name would be passed down through the ages was definitely a great fortune. Liu did not want to stay at his nephew's place for long and quickly left. Song Qingshu naturally did not want to stay in front of Liu. After entrusting Shen Bijuan to Cheng Yaojia, he left with Liu. Not long after leaving the courtyard, Song Qingshu suddenly thought of two acquaintances. He said, Brother Wu Guan, I plan to pay a visit to Liu Wushuang and Cheng Ying. They are definitely trustworthy people. It will be more convenient to have them look after Bijuan. Lu Yu replied, "There is no need to go. They are not at the residence." "If they are not at the residence, then where did they go?" Song Qing-shu was somewhat puzzled. From Lu Yu's tone, it seemed that the two women had not been away for a short time. Lu Yu explained, "It seems that Peach Blossom Island's Island Master Huang's daughter is about to give birth. Island Master Huang has to go out for a period of time, so he sent someone to summon his disciple, Cheng Ying, back to Peach Blossom Island to help. Wu Shuang has nothing to do, so she went with her cousin. Huang Rong." Song Qing-shu's heart stirred. He did not know how she was right now. After giving birth, would she experience danger like in the original work? However, it should not be. Currently, she was not in Xiangyang. Peach Blossom Island was under the protection of Huang Yaoshi, Cheng Ying, and the others. Since he had come to Shanin, should he go to Peach Blossom Island to see her? Her child must be very cute. He did not know who it would look like. Song Qing-shu felt a surge of warmth in his heart. However, he ultimately gave up on this tempting idea. After all, he had important matters to attend to and could not afford to waste time. He needed to investigate the Spirit Mountain Village's plan as soon as possible so that he could make targeted arrangements. There was also the impending threat of the Mongolians. Both of these factors made it hard for him to breathe. After drinking and chatting with Lu Yu for half the night, Song Qing-shu's admiration for Lu Yu grew. This person was not only the great scholar in his memory, but he was also a strategist. He had the ability to govern the country. If there was a chance in the future, he would definitely be able to get Lu Yu to work for him. After returning to his room, Song Qing-shu, who was pretending to be drunk, opened his eyes and quietly snuck towards Shun Bijuan's courtyard. The two of them will be parting tomorrow morning. He still had many things to tell her. The reason he pretended to be drunk was to hide it from the Liu clan. After all, that courtyard was the residence of their young madam. If others found out, it would not look good. Chapter 1965. Brother Song, why are you here? Shun Bijuan was surprised by Song Qing-shu's arrival. Sister Cheng is next door. It won't be good if she finds out. Actually, it doesn't matter if she finds out. Song Qing-shu hesitated. He didn't know if he should tell her about his relationship with Cheng Yaojia or not. However, in the end, he didn't. After all, Cheng Yaojia had a family. If he told her, it would inevitably affect her reputation. I'll be laughed at. Shun Bijuan hurriedly pushed him away. After all, she was still a young girl, and the person next door was her good friend. She was really shy. Song Qing-shu gently hugged her and said, "Don't worry, I'm not here to do anything. I just want to entrust you with some things. I'll be leaving tomorrow morning." He really didn't have any evil intentions when he came to find Shun Bijuan. She had just paid respect to her parents and was in extreme sorrow. Moreover, her mind was always thinking about observing filial piety. If he came to be intimate with her at this time, he would be worse than a beast. Hearing his words, Shun Bijuan realized that she was thinking too much. She blushed and said, "Brother Song, don't worry and go do your things. I'll stay here to observe filial piety for my parents. When you're done, come find me." Song Qing-shu held her tightly in his arms and softly said to her, "Most of the people in the Liu family are on our side. Liu Guaning, Cheng Yaojia, and Lu Yu are all trustworthy. If you have any problems, you can look for them. There is also ninth young mistress Lu Wushuang and cousin young mistress Cheng Ying. However, they are not in the Fu right now. In addition, you have to be careful of the old madam of the Lu Fu. That woman and I don't get along well." Song Qing-shu held her tightly in his arms and softly said to her, "Most of the people in the Liu family are our own people." After staying in the room for more than half an hour, Song Qing-shu was finally pushed out of the room by Shun Bijuan. "Am I that scary?" Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. When he passed by Cheng Yaojia's room, his heart moved. After hesitating for a moment, he finally gently knocked on the door. Who is it?" Cheng Yaojia's soft voice came from inside. He could hear the panic in her voice. "It's me," Song Qing-shu said in a low voice. The room fell into silence. After a long time, Miss Cheng replied in a low voice, "My husband is out. It's not convenient for me to receive guests." Song Qing-shu, long time no see. This young woman has become quite arrogant. It was late at night, and the courtyard soon fell into silence. After a long time, Miss Chung noticed that there was no movement outside. She thought that the other party had left angrily. She subconsciously bit her lip and got up to open the door a little. She wanted to see what was happening outside. Who knew that the moment the door opened a little, a figure would rush in? Chung Yaojia was so scared that she almost shouted for help. It wasn't until she saw the person's appearance that she swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue. Why did you come in? Chung Yaojia seemed to be a bit angry, but her voice was still very soft. You opened the door for me, Song Qingshu said with a smile. Chung Yaojia blushed. Guaning is not at home. You should go out. Song Qingshu was immediately amused. From your tone, it seems that I can only come in if he is at home. No, it's not like that. Chung Yaojia also realized that it was inappropriate to say this, but she couldn't think of a way to explain it. Song Qingshu sat on the bed and said, If you really didn't want me to come in, why did you get up and open the door? Chung Yaojia lowered her head, and her face was so red that it looked like blood was about to drip out. Seeing her embarrassed appearance, Song Qingshu couldn't bear to tease her anymore. He patted the bed and said, Quickly sleep in. It's cold at night. Don't catch a cold. At this time, Chung Yaojia was wearing a set of white pajamas. Obviously, she had just gotten out of bed. Chung Yaojia also felt a little cold. She hugged her arms and shook her head. No, you want to bully me? Song Qingshu was immediately amused. How come we have become so estranged after not seeing each other for so long? Chung Yaojia softly snorted. In the end, she couldn't stand the cold and crawled back into bed. However, she immediately sensed the movement in the bed and couldn't help but angrily say, Why are you so shameless? Smelling the fragrant smell in the bed, Song Qingshu hugged her soft body and whispered in her ear, It's because I caused Madam to catch a cold, so I have to warm her up. Chung Yaojia moaned. Being held in the man's arms, her whole body involuntarily became soft. You stink. You reek of alcohol. Song Qingshu chuckled. I just drank with Lu Yu for half the night. I'm going to take off my stinky clothes now. Chung Yaojia was shocked and hurriedly tried to stop him. Who knew that he was too fast? Her outstretched hand suddenly touched his hot body, and she was so scared that she withdrew her hand as if she had been electrocuted. Song Qingshu held her in his arms and felt her body become softer and softer. He couldn't help but say, Why are you so shy today? Chung Yaojia turned her face away and didn't dare to look at his hot eyes. She replied in a low voice, Bijun is still next door. Song Qingshu laughed. Don't worry. She won't know about us unless you are willing to tell her. If she knows, I won't be able to be a human. Chung Yaojia pouted coquettishly. She felt the pressure from the man's body, and her eyes were about to seep water. Be quiet. Don't disturb her. Song Qingshu buried his head in her neck and said in a low, muffled voice, As long as you can bear it, she won't hear it. Chung Yaojia's whole body had long been moved. She stretched out her snow-white arms and hugged the man tightly. She gave her most gentle side and completely accepted him. After an unknown period of time, Chung Yaojia's incomparably delicate voice rang out in the room. It's been so long, but I still haven't gotten pregnant. I always feel very sorry for Guaning. Song Qingshu was startled. Only then did he remember that the reason the two of them were together was because of Lu Guaning's somewhat absurd deal. He couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. Don't worry, you will get pregnant soon. Chung Yaojia looked at him with a puzzled expression and asked somewhat lazily, Why do you say that? Because before, I refined all of your essence into qi. Of course you can't get pregnant, Song Qingshu explained. Chung Yaojia asked for a long time before she understood what he meant. Her small face suddenly turned red. Why? Why did you do that? Song Qingshu replied seriously. If I let you get pregnant as soon as I came, how could I come to find Madam openly? You're really a big bad guy. Chung Yaojia suddenly pouted, but her heart rippled when she heard this. At this time, she was extremely emotional. She couldn't help but whisper, Actually, as long as you want, even you can come and find me. Chapter 1966. Song Qing-shu was overjoyed when he heard this. But you clearly didn't want to let me in just now. Miss Chung let out a soft cry and shyly buried her head in his chest. You clearly know that I didn't really want to refuse you. Song Qing-shu's fingers slid across the fair skin on her back. He could not help but sigh. But if I come to you after you are pregnant, I will feel that I have let Guanyin down. Chung Yaojia gently bit his shoulder with her pearly white teeth. You're treating me like this. Aren't you letting him down? Song Qing-shu's smile froze. Why do I feel that there is something wrong with what you are saying? You are making it sound like Shimin Qing and Pan Jinlian. Stop. What happened between us was obviously agreed by Guanyin. Miss Chung softly snorted. If he didn't agree, I wouldn't be fooling around with you like this. Hearing her coquettishly say all this, Song Qing-shu felt a fire rising in his lower abdomen. He could not help but turn over and press down on top of her. Miss Chung blushed and stretched out her small hand to stop him. She finished what she had just said. You also know about Guanying's current condition. He also told me that he doesn't mind what happened between us. But as his wife, I still have to help him carry on the family line. So you don't need to refine your essence in a chi anymore. Song Qing-shu looked at her limpid eyes and softly said, Don't worry, I won't. Miss Chung still did not let go. She continued, Guanying's life has been too bitter. Now, he can only focus his energy on building a career. In the future, I hope that you will look at me and help him. Song Qing-shu could not help but sigh. You are really a good wife. It is really Guanying's blessing to be able to marry you. I'm not. Chung Yaojia's face turned red and she muttered, If I were, why would I? Song Qing-shu shook his head and said seriously, This is not your fault. What happened to Guanying has nothing to do with you. On the contrary, you have done a lot for him. If it were not for you, I am afraid he would have been a cripple now. He would not have had the opportunity to practice peerless martial arts, let alone enter the court. Chung Yaojia bit her lips and her eyes became misty. You always use so many fallacies to comfort me. Song Qing-shu smiled, because what I said is the truth. Sweetheart, Chung Yaojia softly said. She finally let go of his little hand. Obviously, she had let go of her body and mind. Who would have thought that Song Qing-shu would not move? Instead, he moved closer to her and whispered something in her ear. Chung Yaojia's eyes became more and more blurred. You scoundrel! Every time you humiliate me like this. Guanying used to hate me like this. Guanying is a modest gentleman, and I am a stinking rascal. How can we be the same? Song Qing-shu laughed. Seeing that she was still hesitant, Song Qing-shu added, According to the doctor, it is easier to get pregnant this way. Chung Yaojia rolled her eyes at him. In the end, she still leaned over. Her snow-white skin seemed to be stained with rose juice. Early the next morning, Song Qing-shu bid farewell to Shen Bijuan. Miss Chung stood at the side, dignified and refined. She was incomparably gentle, looking like a well-behaved young madam. It was as if nothing had happened. Song Qing-shu could not help but sigh that women were natural actors. Even Miss Cheng's temperament could play the role without any flaws. Of course, he would not be so bored as to expose her. After saying goodbye to the two women, he rushed to linen. Along the way, there were wanted posters of Luo Rian, Hua Yu, and the others everywhere. Song Qing-shu rejoiced. Fortunately, he had acted quickly enough to send them out ahead of time. After traveling for about a day, he finally returned to Lin and entered the Qi Prince's mansion. Because he did not want to divulge information, he did not let the gatekeeper announce his arrival. Instead, he used his peerless Qin Gong to enter the rear courtyard. In the pavilion in the middle of the pond, he saw a peerlessly beautiful figure leaning against a pillar. She looked delicate and timid. Song Qing-shu's heart was filled with pity. He rushed over and picked her up. He spun her around a few times and said, Ying, you have lost weight during this time. Ren Ying was startled by someone suddenly hugging her. When she heard her lover's familiar voice, she breathed a sigh of relief. Pleasantly surprised, she said, Why did you come back so quickly? Didn't I tell you to accompany Shinmimi? Looking at her from such a close distance, he saw that her skin was so white that it was almost transparent. There was a faint blush on her skin. Song Qingshu said with distress, "Your own health is not good. Why do you always worry about others?" Ren Ying pursed her lips and smiled. "How am I not in good health? I am obviously very good." However, Song Qingshu could see the loneliness behind her smile. He hurriedly comforted her. "I know you don't want me to worry. Last time you used the great art of blood ignition, you lost a lot of your lifespan. I have been looking for a way to make up for it. I came back in a hurry a few days ago and did not have the time to tell you. Now that I have the time, I can teach you a set of methods." Reninging shook her head. "A person's lifespan is determined by the heavens. Brother Song, why do you need to waste so much energy on me?" She was the holy nun of the Sun Moon sect. She was second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people. She was extremely knowledgeable and had never heard of a method to make up for one's lifespan. She was worried that this matter would take up too much of her lover's energy. Thus, she did not want him to do useless things. "You're just too smart, and smart people tend to get stuck in a dead end." Song Qingshu roughly guessed what she was thinking when he saw her expression. "Don't worry. I'm not the kind of person who will be deceived by a quack doctor. This time, I'm sure you'll trust the person I'm consulting after listening to him." "Who is it?" Renning Ying was also curious when she heard him being so serious. "Of course, it's my grand ancestral master. When it comes to prolonging life, I'm afraid no one is more qualified than him." Song Qingshu smiled. Last time, during his trip to Wudong, apart from the matter of the Mansion of Spirits, Song Qingshu also wanted to ask Zhang Sanfeng for advice. He did not have much hope at first. Who knew that Zhang Sanfeng was so knowledgeable and knew about the great art of blood ignition? Then, he taught him a set of methods to preserve health. "It's spiritual master Zhang?" Hearing Zhang Sanfeng's name, Renning Ying's brows revealed a hint of joy. One must know that Zhang Sanfeng was the world's publicly recognized Earth Immortal. He had lived for more than 100 years, but still had the energy of a man in his prime. Everyone said that he practiced immortal methods to achieve immortality. This rootless tree secret art is a summary of the old man's own body nurturing method. Song Qingshu slowly repeated an incantation to her. "Rootless tree, yellow flowers, grown in the central Wuji village. The daughter of the owner, the husband of the West, matched to enter the bridal chamber as husband and wife. Grandmother Huang advises to drink Tiga wine and get drunk every day. This immortal prescription, soul-returning serum, brings the dead back to life, is the king of medicine." Ren Ying originally listened attentively, but the more she listened, the redder her face became. In the end, she could not help but spit out, "Master Zhang is a man of virtue and prestige. How could he do such a thing? It's obvious that you're using his name to make me learn these messy things." Song Qingshu cried out in injustice. "This is really his old man's painstaking effort. Don't just stop at the literal meaning. I'll explain it to you one by one." Ren Ying snorted. "I want to see how glib your tongue is." Chapter 1967. Song Qingshu laughed bitterly and started to recall the explanation that Zhang Sanfeng gave him. Yellow is the center, the color of Wuji. Wuji is the active yang soil. Jiji is the quiet yin soil. Wuji is the center. They're the true faith, also known as the true meaning. The color of the flower is yellow. The true spirit is in the center position. However, the true spirit is neutral. It cannot be without the same temperament. The daughter of the master has a wooden nature. The son of the West has a golden passion. One nature and one love. They're suited to be husband and wife. When they enter the secret place of the nuptial chamber, they will be advised by Grandma Huang to drink the sweet dew and calm the fire. Those who are not in harmony will be in harmony, and those who are in harmony will be in harmony. The sweet wine is not the distilled water of the world, nor is it a tangible thing in the body's blood. It is a mixture of yin and yang, dense and harmonious qi. It contains the essence of Zhini, and when it passes through, it becomes the water of Zhini. It tastes fragrant and sweet. The ancients called it jade liquid, nectar, and sweet wine, all to describe the harmonious qi. Those who advise to drink do not rush, but must adjust the rush. Cultivation is about the harmony of yin and yang, always in harmony. When you look at something from afar, it is not there. When you look at the body, it is not there. When you look at the heart, it is not there. When you look at the heart, it is not there. You do not know and do not know. Following the rules of the emperor, you will drink the sweet dew every day and enter a drunken state. This intoxication is the prescription of the celestial. It is the juice of the soul. It can revive the dead and bring back the living. It is the great king of medicine. Central, Wuji, Grandma Huang. These are the different names of Zhenyi. Using the combination of yin and yang, it is the center. Using the movement of yin and yang, it is Wuji. Using the harmony of yin and yang, it is Grandma Huang. Using actions, it is Zhenyi. Using calmness to decide, it is Zhenyi. Therefore, one thing is several names. In short, it is Zhenyi. Ren Yingying was intelligent, and after his detailed explanation, she immediately understood that she had misunderstood him. She could not help but exclaim, Zhenren Zhang is indeed a celestial being. His words are profound and profound. Do you understand now? Song Qingshu was a little surprised. Because he wasn't an ancient person, he wasn't familiar with the ancient language. He didn't really understand these profound and obscure words even after listening to them. Ren Yingying nodded. Although I didn't fully comprehend it, I understood about 70 to 80% of it. If I carefully comprehend it, I should be able to comprehend its true meaning in the future. Song Qingshu was overjoyed. He hugged her and kissed her. My Yingying is really smart. This time, he was really embarrassed to say that he didn't understand. Ren Yingying blushed and pushed him away. Don't do this in broad daylight. Song Qingshu chuckled and then took out a pill formula. It's hard to make up for the lost lifespan just by cultivating according to this formula. Great Master has especially written a formula for you. You should be able to completely recover your vitality after a few years of recuperation according to the formula. Zhang Sanfeng was a master of Taoism. It should be known that Taoism was famous for alchemy. However, Song Qingshu, who came from a future, knew what alchemy was all about. Many emperors died from heavy metal poisoning after eating these elixirs. Therefore, when Zhang Sanfeng gave him the formula, he was a little worried. In the end, he was scolded by Zhang Sanfeng. Only then did he understand that this formula was not the traditional alchemy method, but a pure method of recuperation. Song Qingshu later realized that he had worried too much. If this formula really contained elixirs like those in history, how could Zhang Sanfeng live so long and have such a youthful complexion? Originally, he planned to go to Daunting Lake to find the poison hand king of medicine. In the original work, Chang Yuchen was overdosed by Zhang Wuji when he was a child, which led to a great loss of lifespan. Later, after Zhang Wuji became a master of medicine, he specially found Chang Yuchen and taught him the method of recuperation in medicine. Who knew that Chang Yuchen did not take it seriously and did not recuperate according to what he was told. As a result, he died suddenly at the age of 40. This at least proved that the miracle doctors in this world had the ability to prolong life. Of the 4 miracle doctors, Hu Qingyou, Xuan Muhua, and Ping Yizhi were all dead. Only the poison hand king of medicine was left. Unfortunately, Song Qingshu did not have the time to visit him in person. Fortunately, he actually obtained the method of longevity from Zhang Sanfeng. Looking at the prescription in her hand, Ren Yingying, who had always been shy, suddenly couldn't help but throw herself into Song Qingshu's arms. She hugged him tightly and said with a choked voice, Song, thank you. Thank you for doing so much for me. It was human nature to want to live. Which girl would want to die at such a young age? Before, Ren Yingying had tried her best to restrain herself from thinking in this direction. She had already made up her mind that she must cherish the few moments she had left with her lover. Now that things had taken a turn for the better, how could she not be happy? Song Qingshu hugged the soft beauty in his arms and said emotionally, compared to what you have done for me, what I have done is nothing. You can finally relax now. Ren Ying shook her head. No, I am not happy because I have lived for a few more years. I'm happy because I can be with you for a few more years. Hugging the soft and exquisite body, smelling the delicate fragrance on the beauty's body, and listening to the girl's sincere confession, even the most stone-hearted person would be melted. Song Qing-shu could not help but hug her even tighter. He could not help but kiss her red lips. Rin Ying moaned, her whole body seemingly melting in his embrace. Just like that, the two of them kissed passionately. There was not a trace of lust mixed in, only the most sincere feelings. Cough, cough. At this moment, a strange cough suddenly came from not far away. Ren Ying instantly woke up and pushed her lover away. Then, she turned around. Although her appearance couldn't be seen clearly, a trace of red could be seen on her neck through her hair. It could be seen how embarrassed she was right now. Song Qing-shu looked up and saw a bright and beautiful young woman standing next to the rockery by the pool. Although she only had light makeup on her face, she was still intelligent and dandy, elegant and natural. She had a unique temperament that surpassed all other beauties. I am truly sorry to disturb the two of you. The main thing is that this servant has an important matter to discuss with the King of Qi. I hope that younger sister Ren will not take offense. The young woman bowed, her voice gentle and pleasant, making it impossible for others to feel angry. You can talk to him yourself. I will return to my room first. Ren Ying's face had always been tender. Now that she had been caught being intimate with her lover, she had long been embarrassed. She hastily lifted the hem of her skirt and ran away. Song Qing-shu could not help but shake his head. We are obviously married. Why is she so shy? It's as if she was caught having an affair with the first wife. The beautiful woman's face reddened. Young master is still so fond of taking advantage of others. This servant does not have the fortune to be young master's first wife. Song Qing-shu invited her to sit at the small table in the pavilion. He could not help but sigh. We have not seen each other for so many days. Madam is still so beautiful and moving. The beautiful woman before him was naturally the former #1 beauty in the world, Chun Yuan. Some time ago, he had sent her to help Hetai's Ho establish brothels in various major cities, using them to build a secret intelligence network. He then went to the Western Xia. Speaking of which, it had been a long time since they last met. If it was in the past, Chun Yuan would have exchanged greetings with him. Who knew that this time, she would suddenly fall to her knees, tears flowing down her flawless cheeks like pearls from a broken necklace. I hope that young master can save Aka. Chapter 1968. Song Qing-shu was shocked and quickly helped her up. What are you doing, madam? Please get up. I won't get up until you agree. Chun Yuan shook her head. Song Qing-shu said in a deep voice, not to mention the fact that Aku is my friend, I won't leave him to die just because of our friendship. Quickly get up and tell me what happened to Aku. Hearing the word friendship from him, Chun Yuan thought of some beautiful images in her mind. She couldn't help but blush. After standing up, she answered, since Minister Han was killed, the ministers on Minister Han's side have been implicated. Aku was recommended to the palace by Minister Han, so he couldn't escape. Now that Jia Sherdao is so powerful, the status of Princess Jia in the palace is getting higher and higher. Not long ago, Aku was put into the cold palace. Song Qing-shu said, Xiaogo put Aku in the cold palace? That doesn't make sense. Even if she isn't favored, he still has to consider her father. Chun Yuan smiled bitterly. Her father is being beaten by the Manchurian court. It's only a matter of time before he dies. Xiaogo won't care anymore. Song Qing-shu remembered that he had heard about the situation of the 3 border defenses. Dongfang Muxue had almost suppressed the 3 border defenses. But he was also curious. Would Xiaogo just let Jia Shirdao's family be so powerful? He even gave concubine Jia a position in the harem, and even put concubine Jia's former enemy, Aku, in the cold palace? No, there's definitely something wrong. Although Song Qing-shu didn't receive a royal education, He had been an emperor in these countries several times, so he understood the mentality of an emperor. He wouldn't let the situation be so unbalanced, whether it was the court or the harem. The only explanation was that if you wanted to take something, you had to give it away first. Zhao Go was probably going to attack Jia Sherdao. Song Qingshu's expression changed slightly. This was what he wanted to see. When the southern Song court was in turmoil, they wouldn't be able to care about the situation in the north. That way, they could mobilize the power of the Jin Kingdom and the Qin Kingdom to help Xixiao fight against the coming Mongolia. But on the other hand, he was worried that the two sides would end too quickly. If that happened, it would be disadvantageous to the situation. It would be best if the two sides were stuck in a quagmire and kept fighting. Master. Chen Yuan's voice roused him from his chaotic thoughts. Seeing that he was a little absent-minded, she couldn't help but look worried, as if she was about to cry. Yes, for men, what they care about is power. How could women like us be in the scope of your concern? Song Qingshu smiled. Madam, I'm not like other men in this world. I love not only the throne, but I also love beauties. Chen Yuan's heart skipped a beat as she thought of something. She lightly spat. Young master is really greedy. Seeing the mature and plump curves wrapped in her dress, Song Qingshu subconsciously held her in his arms and couldn't help sighing. Tut, tut. It seems that Madam has been practicing the Shinzu scripture that I taught you. Your body is getting softer and softer, and every part of you is getting more and more plump. Chen Yuan was so scared that she pushed him away and looked around. When she found that no one was looking, she heaved a sigh of relief. Gongzi, it's broad daylight. It's better to be careful with your words and actions. Song Qingshu was startled. Long time no see. Madam and I have become estranged. Chen Yuan sighed. If young master wants, you can come to find me at night. I will serve young master. However, young master should be aware of my reputation. If others were to see me, it would affect the world's view of young master. Moreover, it would affect your relationship with your female friends. Song Qingshu was startled and could not help but lament. Madam is right. I was too impetuous. Chen Yuan was different from ordinary women. She had experienced too many trials and tribulations. Now, she was extremely mature and could consider all aspects. Thinking of her purpose, Song Qingshu asked, by the way, Aku is in the cold palace now. Will she be in danger? Chen Yuan replied, I have been through it. I know best what kind of disaster this beauty will bring. When Minister Han was here, Aku was superior to Jia Fei. Now that Jia Fei is in power, a woman's jealousy will make her want to take revenge. It is normal for a concubine to die in the cold palace. Even without this, she is a young girl. She will never be able to make a name for herself if she stays in the cold palace. I can't bear to see her suffer, so I rushed back after I got the news. I happen to know that young master is also back, so I want to ask young master to save her. Well, I will go to the palace tonight. I will act according to the situation. Aku was originally a secret chess piece that Song Qingshu had placed in the palace. To be honest, he was not very willing to give up this chess piece so quickly. Of course, he was not heartless enough to let Aku stay in the palace and take risks. If he really found out that she was in a dangerous situation, he would also save her. Hearing him agree, Chen Yuan could not help but be overjoyed. She knew the other party's ability the best. It should be known that when she and Aku were in the palace, he could do such a thing to them without anyone knowing. Noticing that Chen Yuan's cheeks suddenly blushed and her entire face was tender and beautiful, especially when she unconsciously licked her lips. It was extremely charming. Song Qingshu secretly called her a vixen and hurriedly gathered his thoughts to ask about business. By the way, how is the layout of the brothel between you and Hitai's Ho? Most of the major cities in the Jiangnan area have been set up. Next, we plan to go to the area between the two lakes. Missy's ability to control her subordinates is really amazing. Her martial arts are high, and she is also skilled in using poison. Even the local tyrants do not dare to provoke her. We can save ourselves a lot of trouble. When talking about this matter, Chen Yuan was full of praise. Song Qingshu could not help but say, If it were not for Madame's guidance, she might not have been able to do it. Chun Yuan's expression darkened. I was influenced by what I saw and heard in the past, so I more or less remember some of it. However, she quickly adjusted her emotions and asked curiously, "By the way, young master, why do you only want us to expand our business within the borders of the Song dynasty? Don't the other countries need it? Let's go to one country at a time." Naturally, it was not convenient for Song Qingshu to tell her that he could now use the intelligence of the Qing dynasty's sticking stick office, the Jin Kingdom's washing clothes brothel, Liao's secret service, and Shisha's class 1 hall. Naturally, there was no need for him to send more people. Only the Southern Song dynasty's intelligence network was somewhat empty, so he set up this hidden chess piece in case he needed it in the future. When night fell, Song Qingshu quietly snuck into the imperial palace. He was already familiar with the Southern Song dynasty's imperial palace. Soon, he arrived at the cold palace. Suddenly, he heard the ruthless voice of an old nanny. "Little bitch, you and your mother are both vixens who bring disaster to the country and the people. Let's see how you will seduce men in the future after I scrape your face." Song Qingshu was shocked and hurriedly rushed over. He saw Aku's face covered in tears. She was pressed against the wall by several eunuchs. An old nanny was holding a pair of scissors in front of her. Chapter 1969. A green-clothed girl was pressed against the wall. Her face was pale and her eyes were closed, as if she had accepted her fate. She didn't struggle, didn't speak, but her tears flowed uncontrollably. Who else could it be but Aku? This young lady is really pretty. Even I can't bear to look at her. A eunuch laughed. Another eunuch mocked. "You don't even have a penis down there. Do you still know how to have tender feelings for the fair sex?" The eunuch's face turned red. "You speak as if you have one." The old nanny holding the scissors was instantly angered. "You really are a vixen. Even a ball-less eunuch is head over heels for you. Let's see if this nanny doesn't cut your slutty face." As she spoke, she took the scissors and started to cut the other party's delicate and fair face. No matter how much Aku accepted her fate, she couldn't help but scream in fear. However, the pain she imagined did not come. Instead, she heard a few louder screams. She opened her eyes in confusion and found that those hateful eunuchs and nannies were lying on the ground. She did not know if they were dead or alive. She turned around and suddenly saw a familiar yet strange face. Am I dreaming? Aku subconsciously rubbed her eyes. She didn't know how many times she had seen this person in front of her in her dreams. But every time she wanted to grab him and hug him, she found that it was all for naught. Seeing the young girl's limpid eyes filled with fear and unease, Song Qingshu felt extremely apologetic in his heart. "Aku, it's my fault for coming late. I made you suffer too much, and you've suffered too much." "Brother Song, is it really you?" Hearing his voice, Aku's body trembled. She couldn't help but throw herself into his arms. "Do you know how many times I thought I was hugging you? But when I woke up, I found that it was just a dream. Mother isn't here either. I don't even have a single person to talk to in the entire palace. Everyone envies me and is jealous of me, but they don't know that these things aren't what I want. The entire palace looks grand and majestic, but in my eyes, it's just a tomb that I can never get out of. Everyone wants to harm me. They all want me dead. Not long ago, Minister Han was killed. They finally found a chance." The girl in his arms kept trembling. Hearing her recount the fear she had experienced during this period of time, Song Qingshu sighed. He did not know what to say to comfort her, so he could only listen quietly. At the same time, he stroked her waterfall-like hair from time to time and slowly transferred his true qi into her body to prevent her from fainting due to her emotional agitation. The girl's tears flowed uncontrollably from the very beginning. Song Qingshu could clearly feel that a large patch of his chest was already wet. He couldn't help but laugh. "Aku, are you made of water? Why do you have so many tears?" Aku giggled and couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. "You're so annoying. You're still making fun of me at this time." Seeing that her eyes were no longer as lifeless as before and had regained their former vigor, Song Qingshu finally felt relieved. "Aku, it's all in the past. I'll get you out immediately. From now on, you don't have to be afraid anymore. Really? Akko was very surprised, but she immediately thought of her identity and couldn't help but look gloomy. Although I've been banished to the cold palace, I'm still the imperial concubine of the Southern Song dynasty. If you take me away, I'm afraid it'll be bad for you. Song Qingshu gently looked at her bright eyes. Do you know what the most powerful weapon in Jianghu is? Akka didn't understand why he suddenly asked such an irrelevant question, but she still answered, peacock plume, torrential pear blossom needle, or she used to be half a person in Jianghu, so she could naturally name a lot of famous weapons. Song Qingshu shook his head. Although these weapons are powerful, they're not the most powerful. Then what's the most powerful? Akko asked curiously. Song Qingshu reached out and wiped the crystal tears on her cheeks. Of course, it's the tears of a woman, especially the tears of a beautiful woman like you. Akka finally reacted. She couldn't help but coquettishly say, Big brother Song. Song Qingshu finally put away his smile and sternly said, That's right, at the beginning I did consider the impact of taking you away, but seeing your look of despair just now, I finally understood that no bullshit impact is more important than making you happy. Although I'm not the kind of person who would give up the country for a woman, I also don't need to rely on a woman to accomplish great things. So from now on, you're free. I'll take you out of the Imperial Palace. In the future, if you want to go back to Ping Shi Wang Fu, if you want to follow your mother, if you want to roam Jianghu, it's up to you. Akka shook her head. Although her voice was small, it was very firm. No, I won't go anywhere. I want to stay by Big Brother Song's side. Song Qingshu was startled. Seeing the deep affection in the young girl's eyes, he couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. He thought, it's impossible for the two of us to be together. But he couldn't say these words out loud. First, he was worried that it would hurt her newly lit hope. Second, he couldn't tell her about his relationship with Chun Yuan. Let's go. I'll take you out first. Song Qingshu avoided her earnest gaze. With one hand holding her slender waist, he flew out of the imperial palace. Feeling that slender waist, that astonishing softness and elasticity, caused Song Qingshu's heart to sway. He subconsciously began to compare her to Chun Yuan. One was youthful and charming, the other mature and full. Most importantly, their appearances were somewhat similar. It was really, Song Qingshu nearly had a nosebleed from thinking about it. Extinguishing the indescribable images in his mind, he cursed inwardly, beast, and hastily restrained his thoughts. Suddenly, his complexion changed. His speeding figure came to a halt. Looking at the figure hidden in the black robe, he inwardly complained, How did I run into this guy again? The Prince of Qi is truly in a refined mood, coming to the imperial palace in the middle of the night. I wonder which imperial consort you plan on taking away this time? A hoarse voice faintly came from the black robe. Song Qingshu sighed, Senior, it is already so late at night, yet you are not sleeping and wandering around. It is truly not in accordance with the way of health. The person standing in front of him, one with nature, was naturally Huang Chong. When one is old, one naturally sleeps less, Huang Chong indifferently said. Shortly after, he changed the topic. Since we are acquaintances, leave the person behind, and you can go. Aku unconsciously leaned against Song Qingshu, her small hands tightly grasping his clothes. Clearly, she was very afraid of being taken back. Song Qingshu gently patted her body, comforting her. Afterwards, he asked Huang Chong, What if I don't leave the person behind? Huang Chang's voice grew cold. Then I'm afraid that both of you will have to stay behind. Song Qingshu smiled faintly, his tone revealing a faint trace of arrogance. With my Qinggong, even if I bring someone with me, you may not be able to keep me behind. What if I am included? Suddenly, a deep voice came from behind. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but in the latest version of the Zongheng app, you can now comment on chapters. That is, if you long press on a certain paragraph, you can comment on that paragraph. It is similar to the bullet screen on a video website. When I read books, I like to read chapters, especially when I see something interesting or funny, or when I want to complain. I have the urge to share it with others. Sometimes, I feel that chapters are better than the main text. Perhaps there are still very few people who know that Zhongheng has added this function, so I want to inform everyone that you are welcome to comment on chapters. Chapter 1970. Song Qingshu's expression changed. He hadn't even sensed the man's presence before he spoke. It was obvious how powerful he was. Turning around, Song Qingshu saw a shiny bald head. He was startled. Since when did the Shaolin Temple have such a master? He had dealt with the Shaolin Temple many times. Whether it was the Southern Shaolin Temple or the Northern Shaolin Temple, in terms of martial arts, there were only one and a half that he thought highly of. One was the Sweeping Monk, and the other was the 13 Ultimate Divine Monk, Xian Cheng. However, Xian Cheng had been crippled by him. This man wasn't nameless. Who is this master? Song Qingshu's gaze fell on the big gourd on his waist. His expression became very strange. He had thought that with such a high level of martial arts, he must be an eminent monk. But did eminent monks also need a drink? I used to have a Buddhist name, but it's been too long since I've forgotten. Well, the proudest thing in my life was when I defeated Wang in a drinking contest. You can call me the drinking monk, the old monk muttered, as if he were reminiscing. The drinking monk. Song Qingshu was familiar with the plot of the Golden Book. How could he not know this famous person? However, in the original work, he only existed in legends. Today, he had appeared in front of him. It seems that you've heard of my name? Noticing the other's reaction, the drinking monk was a little surprised. After all, he had always been in Jianghu. There were very few people who knew him. To be able to defeat the world's number one, Wang Chongyang, and to be able to create the 9 Yang divine skill, how could I not have heard of such a person? Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Today was really a day where he couldn't even drink cold water. He had actually encountered 2 great grandmasters at the same time. He was afraid that today would be difficult. Brother Song. Hearing the conversation between the two, Aku could tell that these two were very, very skilled. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel afraid. Don't be afraid. Song Qingshu held her little hand and comforted her in a low voice. At this time, Huang Chong spoke. It seems like the two of you are in love with each other. If this was any other time, I would give you my sincere blessings. However, this woman is the Song Emperor's concubine. I cannot let you take her away. What if I insist? Song Qingshu said coldly. Huang Chong shook his head. You are so young, but your martial arts are so high that I have never seen anyone like you before. Even though I cannot stop you by myself, if the two of us work together, do you think you can leave safely? Song Qingshu was silent. No matter how arrogant he was, he didn't think that he could escape with a delicate girl whose martial arts skills were negligible when facing the joint attack of 2 great grandmasters. The two of you are seniors who have made a name for yourselves decades ago. Fighting me is already considered bullying the weak. Now, the two of you are working together. Don't you think it's too much? Song Qingshu mocked the two of them with his words as he tried to think of a way to escape. Huang Chong sighed. I remember telling you before that I believe in the indifference of the heavens and earth, treating all living things as straw dogs. How can the common moral standards of a secular world bind me? The drunkard monk also laughed. These years, I have heard of the Prince of Qi's deeds. It can be said that he is invincible throughout the world. I have known such a person for a long time. How can I treat him as a junior? Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. The people of the 5 uniques, whether it was Huang Yaoshi or Ouyang Feng, generally respected their statuses. They disdained bullying the weak or joining forces against enemies. In the end, these two fellows were impervious to the rules of Jianghu. Since that is the case, before Song Qingshu could finish his sentence, he suddenly grabbed Aku and shot to the side. Huang Chong harumphed, as if he had been prepared for this. With a wave of his hands, his wide sleeves created 2 invisible walls of air in front of him. Sensing that the air in front of him had become as viscous as a swamp, Song Qingshu's sword chi shot out, cutting through the thick curtain of air. However, in this short period of time, the drunkard monk had already appeared in front of him. A palm of extreme yang energy covered the sky and covered the earth. Huh, get back. The opponent's palm strike did not contain any fancy moves. However, the timing was perfect. It was the moment when Song Qingshu's old energy was exhausted and he had not yet recovered. It was reasonable to say that for a martial artist of Song Qingshu's level, this kind of opening could be said to be almost non-existent. Other experts would not be able to seize this opening. However, two martial grandmasters had attacked at the same time, forcibly creating this opening. Unable to dodge, Song Qingshu could only raise his palm to meet the attack. With a loud bang, Song Qingshu was forced back to his original position. Feeling the remnant yang energy in his arm, he could not help but secretly click his tongue. The peak of 9 yang energy is indeed worthy of its reputation. In the blink of an eye, he had fought with two peerless experts of the present age. Even with his peerless martial arts, at this moment, he felt his blood churning. Huang Chang did not attack again. Instead, he opened his mouth and said, "If the two of us join forces, no one in the world can escape." Song Qingshu was silent. He knew that Huang Chang was speaking the truth. In a battle of life and death, 1 against 2, although he could at least take one person down with him, he would most likely die. More importantly, there was no need to fight to the death with these two. If they were fighting while running, he might be able to escape with his peerless Qinggong, but if he wanted to take Aku with him, it would be beyond his ability. Aku bit her lips and said in a small voice, "Brother Song, you go first. I don't mind staying in the palace and living a luxurious life." Before Song Qingshu had time to reply, Huang Chang spoke again. "Actually, you don't have to feel embarrassed. I have another choice for you." "Oh." Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows. "What choice?" "As long as you agree to one of our conditions, I will make the decision to give you the imperial concubine." Huang Chang did not immediately say it. Instead, he deliberately left him hanging. Hearing his words, Aku could not help but feel embarrassed. Song Qingshu could not help but laugh. "You are not the emperor. How can you give the imperial concubine away? And even if you were the emperor, you would not have the right to give the imperial concubine away." The imperial concubine was not the concubine of an ordinary noble family. Those concubines could be given away as they pleased. For example, Su Dompa had given a pregnant concubine to a friend. But the imperial concubine was completely different. Even if the emperor was willing to give it away, he could not. This was because it represented the face of the imperial family and the dignity of the country. Huang Chang calmly said, "Although I am not the emperor, I can make this decision for the emperor. As long as you do not arrogantly announce her identity as the imperial concubine, the imperial family will not pursue any responsibility." "Oh." Hearing him say this, Song Qingshu somewhat believed him. "Tell me, what are your conditions?" "Protect the emperor with us," Huang Chang responded. Song Qingshu had a strange expression on his face. Did I hear wrongly? Aside from the fact that the palace is heavily guarded, there are countless imperial guards, and there are many experts in the front of the palace hall. There are also imperial weapons. These people would be considered top-notch experts even if they were placed in Jianghu. Even with the two of you, who are at the level of great grandmaster, protecting him, who in the world can harm the emperor? Dojo Monk said, "Ji-sun's worry is not Zhuanyu, but the inside of the wall." Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. Could it be Jia Sherdao and the Mansion of Spirits? I don't know if you guys have noticed, but in the latest version of the Zongheng app, you can now comment on chapters. It means that you can long press on a certain paragraph and comment on that paragraph. It's just like the bullet screen on a video website. When I read books, I like to read chapters, especially when I see something interesting, funny, or I want to complain about it. Sometimes, I feel like the chapters are better than the main text. Perhaps only a few people know that Zongheng has added this function, so I want to let everyone know that you are welcome to comment on chapters. Chapter 1971. Huang Chang continued, "If I stay in the palace, I can protect the emperor by myself. But soon, the emperor will have to travel lightly. I'm afraid I won't be able to take care of him by myself." Song Qingshu looked at the drunkard monk and said, "Isn't it enough for the two of you to work together?" Huang Chang shook his head and said, "The situation this time is extremely dangerous. I haven't been in a good state of mind, so to be safe, I'm inviting you. This matter is very important to the emperor. As long as you do it well, I'll give you a concubine." Aku's expression darkened when she heard his words. She could finally understand her mother's pain. So what if she was the most beautiful woman in the world? So what if she was famous? In the end, she was just a man's plaything. She could be given to someone else at any time. Looking at the man's determined side profile, Akka bit her lip and thought, luckily, Brother Song isn't that kind of person. Song Qing-shu understood something else from Huang Chang's words. It looked like Zhao Gou's trip this time wasn't a simple one. He had been wondering why Zhao Gou could tolerate Jia Sherdao monopolizing power, but now it looked like he couldn't sit still any longer. He planned to take out the entire Jia clan during this trip. But with Jia Sherdao's power, if he really wanted to make a move, it would be like a thunderbolt. No wonder even Huang Chang and the drunkard monk weren't confident. Zhao Gou's move was too risky. Where does the emperor plan to go, and for how long? Song Qing-shu asked in a low voice. Huang Chang's entire face was hidden in the cloak, but his joy could still be felt. "Oh, you decided to join? Tell me about it first. I need to see if I have time." Song Qing-shu still had to deal with the Mongolians going south. If Zhao Gou took too long, he wouldn't be interested in accompanying him. He would leave even if he had to pay a certain price. But if this operation didn't take too long, he could consider it. Zhao Gou was a firm believer in surrendering, and letting him continue to be the emperor would make the border much safer. As for Jia Sherdao, he was currently in favor of peace, mostly because he wanted to oppose Han Xingzhou. Historically, he was a believer in war. Who knew if he would start a northern expedition to divert the attention of the country after he ascended to power? Of course, Song Qing-shu wasn't a selfless saint, so he wouldn't really work for Zhao Gou. It would be best if Zhao Gou's people and Jia Sherdao's people fought each other to the death, and then he would reap the benefits. Huang Shang replied, "It won't be long before His Majesty announces to the world that he is going to Mount Wudong to confer the title of Zhang Sanfeng. Under the pretense of finding a way to prolong his life, he will dispel the suspicions of those ambitious people." At his level, there were many things that he felt it was beneath him to hide. Moreover, the other party was his potential ally, and no matter how he looked at it, they would not betray him. Song Qing-shu cursed silently. He heard that Zhao Gou's body was about to fail. He probably really wanted to find a way to prolong his life on this trip. "I can't let him know that Grandmaster has already taught me the rootless tree incantation. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if he sends someone to ask for it." As for dispelling the suspicions of those ambitious people, he scoffed at it. Whether it was the Spirit Mountain Manor or Jia Sherdao, they would all be able to see through Zhao Gou's intentions. However, the bait this time was too tempting. Not many people would be able to resist the temptation. At the same time, he finally understood why the Spirit Mountain Manor had tried so hard to deal with the Wudong clan. Zhang Sanfeng, the #1 person in the world, was too much of a variable. If he helped Zhao Gou, the Spirit Mountain Manor's plan would probably fail. That was why they had to make arrangements in Wudong in advance, so it would be easier to catch Zhao Gou in one fell swoop. Huang Chang continued, "During this period of time, the Emperor's guard will be unprecedentedly weak, so we will need you and us to protect the Emperor. Don't worry, the Emperor's subordinates will deal with ordinary experts. There will be no need for you to act. Only if a great Grandmaster comes will we need you to act." That sounds dangerous. Song Qing-shu thought about it. If it were other masters, he would be able to deal with them. But the Grandmaster level people were all legendary figures. If he wasn't careful, he might actually be in danger. The drunken monk said, "Don't worry. At our level, we rarely fight to the death. Even if we do fight, no one will be able to do anything to the other. When the time comes, you just need to help keep one of the Grandmasters occupied. We will take care of the rest." Song Qing-shu froze. Are there so many Grandmasters in the world? Isn't it enough to have you 2 guards? The drunken monk answered, "There are only a few Grandmasters in the world. They are mostly old and live in seclusion in the mountains, not caring about the world. But there is no guarantee that someone won't find a way to invite them. We're just being careful. Song Qing-shu snickered. Then how many grandmasters do we have in this group? He did not mind probing Zhao Guo's trump card first. Huang Shang looked at him quietly and extended 3 fingers. So there's no one else. Song Qing-shu was a bit disappointed. But thinking about it, it was normal. Grandmasters weren't cabbages. Looking at the world, could there even be 10? They had 3 of them at once. After taking out some people who definitely wouldn't come out, they should be able to deal with it. I've told you everything I need to say. What do you think? Huang Shang asked. Song Qing-shu nodded. Okay, I'll join. This time, the Southern Song Court was full of undercurrents. He had been worrying about how to ensure that things would develop in his favor. Now, this was a good opportunity. Personally, participating would make it easier for him to guide the direction. Okay, go back and prepare. If anything happens, we will let you know in advance, Huang Shang said. I'll go back first. Song Qing-shu frowned and pointed at Aku in his arms. What about her? Huang Shang was expressionless. The imperial concubine will naturally stay in the palace. When we return from Mount Wudang, we will fulfill our promise and give her to you. Thinking of the people in the palace, Aku's face paled. But she didn't say anything in the end. Song Qing-shu shook his head. No, I have to take her away today. The drunkard chuckled. In the world, the principle is that you give the goods when you give the money. You haven't even fulfilled your promise, and you want to be paid first. How can that be? When I found her, Song Qing-shu said lightly, a few eunuchs and palace maid were about to scratch her face. Do you think I can leave her here? The drunkard and Huang Shang looked at each other and then said, Don't worry. From now on, we will take care of her. Song Qing-shu sneered. What kind of big shots are you? How could you keep protecting a little girl? As long as you aren't careful, she might suffer a fate worse than death. How are you going to compensate her then? The drunken monk hesitated. The others' words didn't make sense. Their main focus was on Zhao Guo, and they could not guard this imperial concubine 24 hours a day. Furthermore, there were differences between men and women, and they could not watch over her at all times. Huang Shang said, We will send more people. Before the mission is completed, we can't let you take her away. What if I insist on taking her away today? Song Qing-shu stood there, his arrogance soaring to the heavens. Chapter 1972. Huang Chang fell silent. After a long time, he said, Young man, don't be too arrogant. On the other side, the drunkard monk took a step forward, faintly coordinating with Huang Chang to cut off Song Qing-shu's path of retreat. Song Qing-shu replied, If I'm not arrogant when I'm young, do I have to wait until I'm old to be arrogant? What joy would there be in life like that? Huang Chang harumphed. I know that you must be extremely arrogant for your martial arts to reach such a level at such a young age. However, I still have to warn you that you are no match for me and Brother Drunkard working together. Song Qing-shu indifferently said, Not necessarily. Huang Chang was an expert in the Tao of nature and hadn't gotten angry in a long time. When he heard Qin Lai's words, he couldn't help but laugh. Such arrogance. Aka hurriedly pulled on Song Qing-shu's sleeve. Brother Song, you really don't have to take such a big risk for me. I'll just wait in the palace for you to pick me up. Song Qing-shu shook his head. Don't worry, I can get you out of here today. Oomph. Huang Chang couldn't take it anymore. His entire body transformed into a black shadow. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Song Qing-shu. His 5 jade-like fingers had already enveloped all of Song Qing-shu's vital acupuncture points. Song Qing-shu gently pushed Aku to the side to prevent her from being caught in the crossfire. Then, a wave of sword chi soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, he had already exchanged several blows with Huang Chang. On the other side, the drunkard monk shook his head. I didn't think that a wise man like me would have to join forces with someone else to bully a junior in my old age. Even though he said this, he didn't hesitate in his actions. He could see that with Song Qing-shu's strength, Huang Chang alone wouldn't be able to take him down, so he could only step forward to help. Song Qing-shu had originally been able to deal with Huang Chang with ease, But after the drunkard monk joined the battle, the situation immediately changed. Whether it was Huang Chang or the drunkard monk, by the time they became famous, not to mention Song Qing-shu, even his father might not have been born. Although Song Qing-shu had many fortuitous encounters, he was still too young to start practicing martial arts. Whether it was experience, martial arts, or even combat experience, he was far inferior to the two. Of course, Song Qing-shu also had his own strengths. He had all kinds of enviable fortuitous encounters and divine skills, as well as the knowledge of two lives. His understanding of martial arts had formed a school of its own. Coupled with the tempering of several life and death situations, he was able to compete with these legendary figures at such a young age in just a few years. In the middle of the battle, Song Qing-shu's brows furrowed even tighter. He originally thought that even if he couldn't win against the two, he should still be able to hold on for a long time. Who knew that the martial arts of the two would complement each other so well? Huang Chang's Nine Qi was extremely cold and yin, while the drunkard monk's Nine Yang Qi was extremely hard and yang. Taking on both of their moves at the same time made him feel like he was in a world of ice and fire. This kind of extreme heat and extreme cold would even make steel brittle, not to mention human flesh and blood. If it weren't for the fact that Song Qing-shu's martial arts had already reached a balance of yin and yang, he would have been restrained by the two jinqi. At that time, no matter how high his martial arts were, he wouldn't be able to use it. However, even with his strong resistance, he was still extremely uncomfortable from the alternating hot and cold jinqi. While Song Qing-shu was feeling uncomfortable, Huang Chang and the drunkard monk were also feeling the same. Any one of them stood at the top of the entire Jianghu, no, the entire world's martial arts. Any one of them could easily destroy a large sect in Jianghu, let alone the two of them working together. Originally, the two of them were confident that they would win if they fought two against one, but the opponent's movement technique was too fast as lightning, making it impossible for the two of them to truly combine their attacks. With their experience, they naturally recognized the opponent's movement technique. It was the top-notch lightness skill, traceless treading on the sand, combined with the carefree sect's famous wave-like subtle steps, as well as the shadow of the Nine Yin Manual's flipping snake. If it was just one of these, it wouldn't be a problem for the two great grandmasters. But the opponent had combined several of the world's top-notch lightness skills, mixed with a strange lightness skill that even the two of them couldn't recognize, making it very difficult for them to hit the opponent despite their strength. What kind of skill is this? How can you ignore gravity and move horizontally in the air? The drunkard monk couldn't help but be astonished as he repeatedly hit the air with his confident attacks. I once observed the clouds in the sky, and I seemed to understand something. Song Qing-shu didn't tell him the truth. In fact, these characteristics came from the lightness skills of the Taishin Sutra on the island of knighthood. However, what happened on the island of knighthood had too many implications, and if word got out, Jia Shidao might think that Song Qing-shu had killed Jia Baiyu. If that happened, many of Jia Shidao's plans wouldn't be able to be carried out, so he just lied. However, it wasn't completely nonsense. After all, he had seen the lines of the horses galloping above the clouds in the Taishin Sutra on the island of knighthood, and he had gained a lot of inspiration. Kid, you really are a genius. The drunkard monk couldn't help but compliment him. No, genius is not enough to describe you. We were far inferior to you when we were your age, and in our knowledge, we have never seen a monster like you. Song Qing-shu smiled and said, if that's the case, how about we stop fighting? It's not that easy. The drunkard monk laughed and said, Huang Chang and I worked together today, and we still couldn't take you down. If people in Jianghu knew about this, I would lose face. Try this. He stopped and quickly made hand seals with both hands, leaving only a series of afterimages. Huang Chang nodded to himself. Song Qing-shu's movements were too strange, and it would be difficult to hit him with ordinary martial arts. In that case, it would be better to use a full-range attack so that he wouldn't be able to dodge. He took the opportunity to stall Song Qing-shu until the drunkard monk finished making the hand seals, and then he flashed to the side. Om ma and I pad me hum. An invisible sound wave spread out, with a drunkard monk at the center. The surrounding tiles moved like waves in the sea, and the scattered leaves in the sky were instantly turned to dust. This was a full-range attack. Even if Song Qingshu's Qinggong was high, unless he teleported dozens of feet away, he wouldn't be able to dodge. Song Qingshu only felt a surge of emotions in his heart. He knew that the other party's mantra had already caused him slight internal injuries. Suddenly, he glanced at Aku in the distance. Although she was far enough away, she was still affected by the aftermath of the damning mantra. She instantly spat out a mouthful of blood and fell powerlessly to the ground. Aku! Song Qingshu's figure flashed, and he was already at her side. He hugged her and felt the sound wave that seemed to contain the power to destroy the world. He couldn't help but turn cold. Do you think you're the only one who can use sound waves? He opened his mouth, and a golden sound wave formed in front of him. Floating matters. The boat in the sea of bitterness, drifting back and forth, is not free. If you're willing to turn back, you're on the shore. Don't wait for the storm to destroy the boat. The drunkard monk spat out a mouthful of blood. It was obvious that his damning mantra had been broken. Song Qingshu was startled. The other's attainments in sound wave technique shouldn't have been broken so easily. He seemed to have suddenly stopped. Chapter 1973. Huang Chong stepped forward and stood between the two of them to prevent Song Qingshu from following up with another attack. At the same time, he exclaimed, "This is the carefree sex soul-searching sound transmission technique. I didn't expect you to use it to such an extent." Song Qingshu ignored him and cupped his hands at the drunkard monk. "Thank you for showing mercy just now." If the drunkard monk hadn't deliberately shown mercy, Aku would have been dead by now. The drunkard monk shook his head. "I was too excited just now and didn't notice that this lady was still nearby. She was seriously injured. How could I make the same mistake again?" At this time, he had already caught his breath. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, he asked curiously, "Compared to the carefree sex soul-searching sound transmission technique, I'm more curious about the poem you just said. Where did it come from?" It should be known that the sound wave technique was easy to learn but hard to master. As long as one's internal energy was strong enough, one could use methods like the lion's roar to hurt the enemy. However, the enemy that could be used to deal with was usually far weaker than one's internal energy. Against an expert of the same level, the crude lion's roar would not have much effect. At this time, a better method was needed. High-level sound wave technique couldn't reach its maximum power by just shouting a few words. The shouted words often had to conform to a specific rhythm. Only in this way could the internal energy promote each other and amplify the power to the extreme. After thousands of years of practice, the Buddhists discovered the 6 words Great Brightness mantra, which was most suitable for their internal energy. Adding 1 word would be too much, and subtracting 1 word would be too little. The Taoist 9 words incantation was the same. After thousands of years of exploration by countless talented people, the Buddhists and Taoists concluded these 2 methods. In the end, Song Qingshu, at such a young age, was able to display the powerful spirit of speech. Moreover, each word was like a pearl, faintly exuding an immortal aura. How could he not be surprised and curious? Because the drunkard monk had shown mercy to Aku, Song Qingshu had a good impression of him. Hearing this, he replied, "This is an incantation my great-grandmaster taught me." Immortal Zhang. The drunkard monk's eyes showed fascination. It seems that he is still ahead of us. On the other side, Huang Chong remained silent. Evidently, he agreed with his judgment. Song Qingshu had no time to waste here. He could feel that Aku's body was getting colder and colder. He knew that he had to save her as soon as possible. So he stretched out his hand and drew a line in front of him. There seemed to be many transparent sword chi appearing and disappearing within a 3-foot radius, and it seemed to be expanding. The drunkard monk had a look of admiration on his face. Is this the 10,000 returning swords that shocked the world during the Golden Snake meeting? It is indeed extraordinary. Song Qingshu said in a deep voice, although Senior held back and injured me. I have to save someone, so I have to offend you. At this time, Huang Chong opened his mouth and said, Forget it, take her away. Song Qingshu was stunned. You want us to leave? Although the drunkard monk was injured, this injury was nothing to the powerful regenerative ability of the 9-yang divine skill. On the other hand, Aku's injury was very troublesome. He had to finish the battle quickly. If they really fought, it would be disadvantageous to him. He could not understand why Huang Chong had suddenly changed his attitude. Huang Chong sighed. We wanted to invite you to help us. If we fought with you first, no matter who won or lost, someone would definitely be seriously injured. Wouldn't that be a loss of combat strength for nothing? Moreover, the imperial concubine is seriously injured. If we do not quickly save her, I fear that she will die. So take her away. However, I hope that Prince Qi will remember his promise. Otherwise, the two of us will not let this matter rest. Prince Qi will not be able to establish a foothold in Jiangnan in the future. Many thanks. Song Qingshu cupped his hands. Song Mao will naturally keep his promise. He had already planned to enter the game and naturally would not go back on his word. Seeing the two move aside, he no longer hesitated. Holding Aku's increasingly limp body, he jumped out of the imperial palace and disappeared into the darkness. Watching his disappearing figure, the drunkard monk sighed. When I heard you speak of him before, I did not believe that a young man could reach this level. Seeing him today, I find that you still underestimated him. Huang Chong coldly snorted. He was originally the most outstanding youth in the last few decades. It is a pity that he is obsessed with women. I fear that in the future, he will have no fate with the heavenly path. The drunkard monk laughed. I don't think so. And I do not get close to women. Even now, we have not touched the threshold of the heavenly path. Perhaps he has found a different path and will surpass us. Huang Chong calmly said, How is that possible? Everyone else is diligent, afraid that love will affect their cultivation. What about him? He is addicted to wine and women, and he doesn't seem to be working hard. Instead, he has achieved more than everyone else, and all the benefits have been taken by him. How is that possible? You have not dabbled in Buddhist martial arts, so it is not strange that you cannot see it. When I fought with him just now, I vaguely felt that the path of his Jinqi had some traces of the Tantric sect. It is said that the Tantric sect has a happy Zen method that requires a partner to cultivate together. Therefore, the more he likes women, the higher his martial arts will be. The drunkard monk was a transcendent existence in Buddhism. He had traveled the world and naturally knew some of the secrets of the Tantric sect. Happy Zen method? Huang Chong was very knowledgeable and quickly remembered the rumors about this method. His expression changed. Is it that evil method? No. The drunkard monk shook his head. The Buddhist and Taoist sects have dabbled in the dual cultivation method. It is a great Tao that harmonizes yin and yang. How can it be seen as evil as the secular people think? Huang Chong sneered. But as far as I know, in the past, the people who cultivated the happy Zen method of the Tantric sect all died of Qigong deviation. Moreover, they all committed many evil deeds and raped women. The drunkard monk's 9-yang Jinqi circulated a few times, and his internal injuries had recovered. His entire body was glowing again. He laughed and said, But have you ever heard such rumors about him? Even the imperial concubine seemed to be willing to follow him. Huang Chong was silent for a long time. Then he said, Although there are rumors in Jianghu that he is greedy and lustful and has many women around him, I have never heard of him doing anything excessive. The drunkard monk said, At such a young age, his martial arts have reached such a high level. He also has a powerful force under his command. He is also handsome and confident. If I were a woman, I wouldn't be able to help but like him. Naturally, he doesn't need to learn from the Tantric sect seniors and use such despicable methods. There was a hint of a smile in Huang Chang's voice. Listening to your envious tone, Don't let a junior cause your Tao heart to become unstable. The drunkard monk chuckled. Speaking of unstable Tao heart, I feel that your attitude towards him is a bit strange. Could it be that your beautiful female disciple has an ambiguous relationship with him that makes you feel like a cabbage that you've painstakingly raised has been taken away by a pig? Huang Chong coldly snorted. That guy flirts with women everywhere. He's not a good match. I have to remind Ing Luo again. He turned around and left. Clearly, he was not in a good mood. Chapter 1974. Meanwhile, Song Qingshu carried Aku out of the palace. As he transferred his Jinqi into her body, he comforted her. Aku, don't be afraid. I will cure you. Aku's little face was a little pale, but at this moment, her eyes were like crescent moons and her face was full of smiles. With Brother Song here, I am not afraid at all. Song Qingshu smiled slightly and turned to think about how to treat her injury. Her injury was already considered serious for an ordinary person. If he was not careful, he would not be able to save her. Fortunately, he was best at treating internal injuries, so it should not be a problem to save her life. After all, he had treated this kind of injury several times. Suddenly, there was a cold and soft touch on his cheek. Song Qingshu was startled and looked at the girl in his arms in amazement. Aku's pale face had a trace of crimson. Her eyes were somewhat evasive as she shyly said, Brother Song, thank you. Thank you for taking such a big risk to save me. Silly girl, it is my duty to save you. Furthermore, I have accepted your mother's request. How could I leave you alone in that terrifying palace? Song Qingshu replied. At the same time, his heart was filled with worry. How could he explain to her that it was impossible between the two of them? In short, thank you. These years, although I have lived a luxurious life, my heart has always been unhappy. I'm like a canary in a cage. Today, I have finally escaped from the cage. I have an unprecedented sense of freedom. It is as if the air is sweet. Aka murmured, and at the same time, she took a deep breath, and her face revealed an intoxicated expression. Song Qingshu felt pity for her. He thought that she was just a little girl. Her parents' reputation had brought her endless troubles. She was originally a lively girl, but she had to live in seclusion in the depths of the palace and fight with those twisted souls in the harem. The girl's slender waist could not bear to be held, and her body was as soft as cotton. Although her small chest was a little more mature than her mother's, it was full of youthful temptation. Now that she was in his arms, although separated by clothes, he could still feel her softness and elasticity. Even though Song Qingshu was used to seeing wind and rain, he still felt a little thirsty. After cursing himself, Song Qingshu hurriedly collected his thoughts and said, Aku, actually, your mother and I. He was about to explain the relationship between him and Chun Yuan so that he could cut off some of the young girl's thoughts as soon as possible. However, as soon as he started to speak, he was stunned to find that her eyes were tightly shut. Her eyelashes were trembling slightly, and the corners of her lips were slightly raised, revealing a sweet smile. It was obvious that she was weak after being seriously injured. Now that she had relaxed, she had unknowingly fallen asleep. Shaking his head, Song Qingshu increased his speed and flew toward the king of Qi Manor. Within the prince of Qi's residence, Rening Ying was currently accompanying Chun Yuan in conversation. However, Rening Ying could tell that Chun Yuan was somewhat absent-minded, frequently glancing towards the door. Clearly, she was rather anxious. Sister Yuan, don't worry. Big Brother Song's martial arts are unparalleled. He will definitely be able to bring little sister Ko back. Rin Ying consoled her softly. Chun Yuan sighed. Young master's martial arts are indeed very high, but there is also an unfathomable almighty in the imperial palace. Coupled with Aku's sensitive identity, we may not be able to bring her back as we wish. Why is Madame so unconfident in me? At this moment, a clear and bright voice suddenly sounded from outside the door. Hearing Song Qingshu's voice, Chun Yuan could not help but be overjoyed. Turning her head, the smile on her face immediately froze. Young master, what happened to Ako? Song Qing-shu replied. Two grandmasters have appeared in the imperial palace. She was not careful and was struck by the shock waves of their battle. She suffered some injuries. Chen Yuan's entire body immediately went limp. In a trembling voice, she asked, shock waves from a battle between two grandmasters? Wouldn't Ako be? Having received the Shinzu scripture from Song Qing-shu, she could already be considered half a member of the Jianghu. Thus, she was very clear on the level of experts. What kind of people were grandmasters? If Ako was injured by the shock waves, how could she still be alive? Noticing her expression, Song Qing-shu knew that she had misunderstood and hurriedly explained, Don't worry. Although her injuries are not light, I can heal her. Let's go back to the room first and then prepare some hot water. Ren Yingying ordered the maids to prepare the hot water as she comforted Chen Yuan. Sister Yuan, Brother Song's martial arts are profound. Whether it is the Nine Yin Manual, the Scripture of God, or the solitary Yang Finger, all of them have the ability to bring back the dead. If he says he can save her, then he can. Only then did Chen Yuan relax. I was too worried and confused. The two of them hurriedly followed Song Qing-shu to the bedroom that had been prepared. At this time, because of the commotion, Ako had already woken up. She was in Song Qing-shu's arms and didn't notice anyone else. Looking at his handsome face and thinking of how he had risked his life to save her in the palace, she was so excited that she couldn't help but kiss him again. Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. He turned around and spread his hands to look at the two women. Aku is seriously injured, and her mind is a little muddled. She might do something shocking, but it has nothing to do with me. He really felt wronged. He had always been able to keep his distance from Aku, but who knew that he would do something like this in front of Chen Yuan? He thought, it's over, it's over. Chen Yuan must be thinking of me as a pervert, a beast, no, worse than a beast. But to his surprise, Chen Yuan didn't have any reaction. She just sat on the edge of the bed and held Aku's little hand. Aku, how do you feel now? Does it hurt? Do you feel uncomfortable? Only then did Aku realize that there was someone else in the room. She blushed and said, No, it doesn't hurt. In fact, she was seriously injured, but at this moment, her heart was filled with the joy of freedom and the excitement of being with Song Qing-shu, so she ignored the pain in her body. Seeing the embarrassed look on Song Qing-shu's face, Ren Yingying couldn't help but remind him, Let's save her first. Don't think too much. Song Qing-shu smiled embarrassedly, then calmed himself down and began to treat Aku's injury. Although he knew many martial arts, when it came to treating internal injuries in a normal way, none of them was better than the single Yang Finger. He had used it many times before and had already improved it. Coupled with his endless internal force, he didn't have to be like Reverend Eating, who couldn't fight for a long time after saving a person. He kept pressing the major acupoints all over Aku's body with his fingers. Soon, hot air rose from both of them. Ren Yingying took Chen Yuan's hand and said, Let's go out first so that we won't disturb them. Although she was worried, Chen Yuan was more afraid of affecting the treatment. She nodded and reluctantly left the room. She and Ren Yingying stayed in the next room. About 2 hours later, the door to the room finally opened. Chen Yuan and Jian Xiaotian rushed in and saw Song Qing-shu getting down from the bed with a tired look on his face. Her injuries have healed. She should be fine after resting for a few days and not moving around. Although he didn't consume as much energy as Reverend Eating, when he used the single Yang Finger, it was not easy to take a person from the hands of the Grim Reaper. In addition, he had fought with the two great masters in the first half of the night. At this moment, he was extremely tired and just wanted to have a good sleep. With Ren Yingying's help, Song Qing-shu walked to the door and suddenly turned to Chen Yuan and said, By the way, she just used her true qi to heal her. Her body is cold and hot, and she's sweating all over. Can you help her change her clothes and take a bath so that she won't catch a cold? She's very weak now, and if she catches a cold, it might be very serious. Chen Yuan hurriedly knelt down and bowed to him. Young master, we, mother and daughter, We'll always remember your great kindness. We'll definitely repay you in our next lives. Song Qing-shu hurriedly helped her up. We're all friends. Why do you have to be so polite? Get up quickly. You're making me feel uneasy. Rin Yingying, who was standing on the side, teased, Sister Yuanyuan, he certainly doesn't want to have an illusory next life. He still has a chance in this life, doesn't he? Qin Yuanyuan blushed and said timidly, I'm regarded as a disaster by everyone. I dare not tarnish young master's reputation. Rin Yingying was stunned. I'm talking about your daughter. Why are you talking about yourself? Chapter 1975. Noticing her strange expression, Qin Yuanyuan immediately realized that she had said something wrong in a panic. She was used to being calm, so she blushed for the first time. Song Qingshu saw that something was wrong, so he immediately pulled Rin Yingying away. Help me back to rest. Also, madam, don't take too long to let Ah Cook catch a cold. Seeing them leave, Qin Yuanyuan was relieved. She came to the bedside and saw that her daughter had fallen asleep. She wanted to help her up, but she suddenly blushed and couldn't help but spit. It turned out that Aku's body was already soaked in sweat. Her gauze-like dress clung tightly to her skin, making her slim and graceful body almost faintly discernible. Did he run away so fast? Qin Yuanyuan snorted, but she was not angry. If it was before, she would have misunderstood, but now that she had learned martial arts, she naturally knew that using true qi was the easiest way to make people sweat. Moreover, when they were waiting, Rin Yingying also described the process of saving people with one yang finger to her. She knew that the person being saved was like being in a world of ice and snow, and the next moment, it was like being put on a stove. Seeing that her daughter was soaked in sweat, Qin Yuanyuan could roughly guess how much true qi Song Qingshu had used in the whole process. She sighed and began to help her daughter bathe and change clothes. After taking off her daughter's clothes, Qin Yuanyuan looked at her milky skin and blushed. She thought that this little girl was even more delicate than she was when she was young. If it was before, it would have been difficult for her to do this alone. She would have needed the help of maids. But now that she had learned the Shinzu scripture, although she was not a martial arts master, her physique and strength were much stronger than before. In addition, Aku was delicate and light, so she could handle it alone. She helped Aku to the bathtub and helped her wipe her body. Suddenly, she heard Aku murmuring unconsciously, brother song, brother song. Qin Yuanyuan was stunned. She didn't expect this little girl to be so deeply in love. She couldn't help but curse. The little bastard surnamed Song is really good at stealing hearts. However, she also knew that she could not blame anyone for this. With Song Qingshu's character and appearance, coupled with his current status and reputation, as well as his martial arts that could give women an incomparable sense of security, his charm was truly lethal to women. Not to mention ordinary girls, even a woman like her, who had experienced countless hardships and thought that her heart was as still water, was moved by him. Qin Yuanyuan's heart skipped a beat as she glanced at her daughter guiltily. Seeing that she was still unconscious, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, thinking of the complicated relationship in the future, her beautiful brows were smeared with a faint layer of sorrow. At this moment, Song Qingshu was soaking in the bathtub. Rin Yingying knelt behind him and gently massaged him. He couldn't help but sigh. This is really a celestial life. If only I could be with you like this every day. Rin Yingying curled her lips and unconsciously tightened her grip. I can't wait to be with you every day, but can you do it? Song Qingshu sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly smiled apologetically. I thought Yingying wouldn't be jealous. I was a little disappointed in my heart. After all, only people who love deeply will be jealous. If you don't care, you can naturally be magnanimous. Bah! Rin Yingying directly pushed him away. Who loves you deeply? Shameless. Looking at her shy appearance, Song Qingshu was very happy in his heart. What he liked the most was Rin Yingying's arrogance. She obviously liked him very much, but she was unwilling to admit it. Moreover, She was often very thin-skinned and would shyly refuse many things. But the more she refused, the more he liked to tease her. "You've been tired for the whole day. Come down and take a bath together." Song Qing-shu patted the bathtub and invited her with anticipation. "I don't want to." As expected, Ren Ying refused straightforwardly. "But if you go to take a bath after I'm done, I'll be asleep by the time you come back." Song Qing-shu pretended to be wronged. Ren Ying's little face blushed, and she lightly snorted. "Didn't you say that you were very tired? It's just the right time to sleep." Ugh. Song Qing-shu was speechless for a moment. He also knew that it was probably impossible to use words to make her accompany him to take a bath together. His eyes turned, and he came up with a plan. "You don't say. I'm a little sleepy." As he spoke, he closed his eyes and lay in the bathtub. His voice became softer and softer, as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. "It seems that you're really tired." Ren Ying felt a little sorry for him. She walked over and gently wiped the water stains on his face. "Qing-shu, get up and sleep on the bed. It's easy to catch a cold if you sleep here." Song Qing-shu mumbled an "in," and Ren Ying went over to help him up. Unexpectedly, his body suddenly became incomparably heavy. She slipped and fell into the water. Just as she was about to get up, she was hugged by the man's strong arms. She wanted to say something, but just as she was about to open her mouth, her red lips were kissed. She struggled a few times, but it was a pity that it was useless. Her body soon softened under the man's skillful flirting. "I still remember the first time we met. We hugged each other in the bathtub like this." Song Qing-shu kissed her earlobe and said with some emotion, "The first time we met was on Blackwood Cliff. At that time, you were with Dongfang." Ren Ying spat and rolled her eyes at him with some dissatisfaction. "At that time, I felt that you were very annoying. I remember now. At that time, I hugged you from behind like this." Song Qing-shu laughed. "At that time, I even said that I was going to take off your clothes, but it was a pity that I was interrupted. I didn't think that it would take so long for it to come true." "You." Ren Ying gritted her teeth, her beautiful eyes full of anger. "You're clearly a good person, but your mouth is very bad. At that time, I really wanted to cut you into 1,000 pieces. Now you can fulfill your wish from back then. Scratch me 1,000 times, 10,000 times, and I won't even bat an eyelid." Song Qing-shu said with a smile. Ren Ying was startled. "How? Use your..." Song Qing-shu smiled wickedly and whispered in her ear. Ren Ying's face instantly turned red, and she pushed him away. "Pervert!" Song Qing-shu roared with laughter and pulled her back into his embrace. His tenderness quickly caused her eyes to become misty, and her entire body to become tender and soft. "You're too tired today. You should rest early." Ren Ying maintained the last bit of rationality she had left to stop him. Song Qing-shu smiled slightly. "It's not like you don't know what kind of martial arts I practice. With you by my side, I'll be able to recover faster. Then let's get up and go to sleep first." Under the candlelight, Ren Ying's bashful appearance was truly beautiful. Song Qing-shu laughed and said, "How can the bed be better than the water?" Then he pulled her into his arms as she let out a tender cry. Chapter 1976. Early the next morning, Song Qing-shu went to the garden to practice and happened to meet Chen Yuanyuan, who was helping Ku to take a walk in the garden. Seeing him, the girl couldn't hide the joy in her eyes. She called out sweetly, "Brother Song." The girl's soft voice really made people feel comfortable, as if they had eaten ginseng fruit. Song Qing-shu took back his genuine chi and asked with a smile, "How do you feel today?" "Except for a little weakness, everything else is fine. My body doesn't hurt anymore." The girl replied softly. Seeing her daughter's eyes curved like a crescent moon, Chen Yuanyuan couldn't help sighing secretly and then asked, "Hey, why didn't I see Miss Ren?" Song Qing-shu replied, "She's a little tired. Let her sleep a little longer." Ren Ying's appearance last night appeared in his mind. It was really memorable. As an experienced person, Chen Yuanyuan could naturally guess what kind of fierce battle had happened last night from his expression. She couldn't help but say, "It's not like I don't know your character. You're like an insatiable wolf. Miss Rin's vitality has been damaged, and her body is weak now. Don't torture her too much. After spending some time with Ren Ying, she had a good impression of this kind and generous girl. Song Qing-shu said awkwardly, "Don't worry, I'm not that kind of person. I just got a formula to prolong life, and I taught her to practice it last night." Chun Yuan couldn't help thinking of the scene when he taught her to practice Shinzu scripture, and her heart couldn't help beating wildly. Aka suddenly said, "Mother, what are you talking about? What do you mean by, Brother Song is like an insatiable wolf? I don't understand." Chun Yuan's cheeks suddenly turned red. It turned out that when they were talking just now, she had unconsciously forgotten that there was someone next to her. As a result, she accidentally revealed the degree of intimacy between them. She hurriedly found a few reasons to avoid it. Chun Yuan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, her daughter had been raised in a greenhouse since she was a child, so she had no experience and was not smart. Otherwise, she would really be ashamed. After talking for a while, Chun Yuan felt a little guilty and planned to send her daughter away. "Go back to your room and have a rest first. I have something to say to Prince Song." Aka pouted. "Is there anything I can't hear?" Chun Yuan was a little annoyed. She glared at her and said, "I told you to go back to your room, so go back to your room. The adults are talking about business. What are you doing here?" Aka was a little dissatisfied. "How can I still be a child? Besides, Brother Song is only a few years older than me." At this time, Song Qing-shu laughed. "Aku, Madam has been worried about you every day. Don't make her angry. You should go back and rest first. Big Brother will take you to breakfast later." "All right, I'll wait for you." Aku's eyes lit up, and she happily followed the servant girl into her room. Chun Yuan was speechless. "I really have to give it to you. As her mother, my words are not as effective as your words. It's true that a grown girl can't be kept at home." Hearing her last sentence, Song Qing-shu's heart thumped, and he hurriedly explained, "Madam, please understand, there really is nothing between me and Aku. I only treat her as a younger sister." Chun Yuan sighed. "But in Aku's heart, she doesn't just treat you as an older brother." Song Qing-shu was silent. How could he not know what Aku was thinking? But what could he do about this? Chun Yuan quietly looked at him. Her usual flirtatious expression was replaced with seriousness. "How do you plan to treat Aku in the future?" Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. "Naturally, I will deliberately distance myself from her. A young girl's heart is fickle. In the future, when she meets someone she truly loves, it will be fine." Chun Yuan shook her head and gave a long sigh. "After knowing you, how can there be a man in this world that can move her heart?" Song Qing-shu still wanted to say something, but Chun Yuan put a finger on his lips. "You don't need to deliberately distance yourself from her. If you do that, when she finally becomes happy, I'm afraid she will instantly become heartbroken. She has suffered too much over the years. I don't want to see her sad appearance again." Song Qing-shu had a headache. "Then what can I do?" Chun Yuan bit her lips, obviously hesitating whether to say something or not. After a long while, she finally said, "You just need to treat her well in the future. Treat her well." Song Qing-shu silently said this sentence. Why did it sound wrong the more he listened? What does Madam mean by this? Chun Yuan angrily rolled her eyes at him. "You really don't know how to be obedient after getting the benefits. Naturally, I will entrust her to you. You also know that her father is in a precarious situation and is destined to be defeated. I also can't protect her. Only by letting her follow you, her peerless appearance will not bring disaster and misfortune to her. Moreover, she originally likes you. This is the best of both worlds." Song Qing-shu was stunned. How can this be? Chun Yuan turned around and looked at the flowers in the distance. Why can't I? Song Qing-shu was a little angry. Between me and you, with that kind of relationship, how can I have anything to do with her? How can there be a mother like you? Chun Yuan turned her head back. A trace of a mischievous look appeared on her face. You don't need to have such a big reaction. You don't think that I deliberately tested you like last time, do you? Only then did Song Qing-shu remember that a long time ago, Chun Yuen had also made such a proposal to him. And in the end, she scolded him, whether it was a test or not. What I said just now is the truth in my heart. Do you really not look forward to it? Chun Yuan's eyes suddenly became a little blurred, and at that moment, it seemed as if the temptation of the world's most beautiful woman was displayed again. What a vixen! Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. It would be a lie to say that I don't look forward to it. In this world, there is no man who can resist such a temptation. But it is one thing to think in the heart, and another to do it. Although I don't think that I am a good person, I also don't think that I am a beast. Why do you think that this kind of thing is a beast? Chen Yin sighed faintly. Back then, I saw too many things that were even more beastly than this in Qinhuai River. Those princes and ministers were righteous in front of others, but each of them was more despicable than the last. In order to satisfy some of their hobbies, those pleasure boats on Qinhuai River would often train twin sisters, making mother and daughter serve each other. It was also common. Song Qingshu listened with his mouth agape. These ancient people really didn't know how to evaluate them. Even the future Dongguan was not so open, right? Since you know these dirty things, why did you still make such a proposal? Song Qingshu said impatiently. Chen Yunyuan was stunned at first. Then she blushed and said angrily, You wish. You think that I want to be with Ko. I said that Ko should follow you. I didn't say that I want him to. You really scared me. Song Qingshu breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help laughing. But this won't do. I really can't get over it. Chen Yunyuan sighed. Back then, I was influenced by what I saw and heard in Qinhuai River, so I got used to these things. What's more, you're different from those men, and Aka really likes you. I also know that you will definitely treat her well, so I made such a proposal. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.